In my second year of high school, I saw with my own eyes the boy I had a crush on being cornered in the public restroom by a group of school bullies, led by Lin Mian. A surge of youthful hormones and reckless passion clouded my judgment. I rushed in without a second thought, throwing myself in front of him to shield him. I took the brunt of the blows for him. The worst kick landed squarely in my abdomen, causing internal uterine bleeding. The doctors later delivered the verdict that I would never be able to have children. By my hospital bedside, he clutched my hand tightly, his scalding tears falling on the back of it, and swore to me, "Xiao Han, I will be responsible for you for the rest of my life." Later, he certainly did take responsibility, leveraging the family fortune and financial backing of our factory's second-generation heir. He was propelled to the top, eventually becoming the hottest new tycoon in Haicheng. However, on the very night of our company's celebratory gala for its successful IPO, yet there he was, in a hotel suite, with Lin Mian, the very school bully who used to torment him, putting the horns on me. After their affair came to light, that wretched pair joined forces. Using my own Hermes scarf, they tightened it around my neck from behind, in the suffocating grip of near death. I heard the icy pronouncement from the husband I had loved for so many years, "Xiao Han, don't blame me. If you weren't infertile, I would never have been driven to this." Then came Lin Mian's familiar, smug snicker, "Ong, you should have told her ages ago. Back then, me cornering you was just a bit of fun between a couple. If she hadn't stuck her nose in, we would have been together long before now." In that endless sea of regret, I died with my eyes wide open. When my eyes opened again, hazy sunlight streamed through the classroom window, and chalk dust danced in the beams of light. I was reborn back to my senior year of high school. This time, I passed by that familiar public restroom again. From behind a wall came the sounds of shoving and the malicious laughter of girls, and the slender figure being surrounded in the middle was none other than Xia Xiang. But this time, there was no trace of the panicked cries and pleas for help I remembered from him. Instead, I clearly heard his confession, filled with excitement and a desire to please. "Nian Nian, I know you like me, let's be together." So, this is how you draw the key auxiliary line for this problem. Got it? Xia Xiang's slender finger pointed at the math test paper spread out on my desk. His voice was gentle, but the tips of his ears were tinged with a faint blush. I snapped out of the violent palpitations from my rebirth, my gaze settling on the face of the still youthful boy before me. Yes, it was this face, this seemingly innocent and devoted look, that deceived me for a lifetime. Yeah, got it. With a blank expression, I snatched the test paper back with a sharp swish, my voice icy. Then I simply lowered my head, ignoring the figure in front of me that had frozen in place. "Yang Han, how on earth did you manage to get through to Xia, the top student? He's usually so aloof and can't be bothered to help anyone with their questions." My deskmate leaned in, lowering her voice, her tone dripping with gossip. "He's not into you, is he?" "Into me," I sneered inwardly, my nails digging into my palm. "Oh, he's into me, alright, how amusing." After squeezing every last drop of value from me, they teamed up with an old flame to send me to my grave. "Maybe," I said with a wry twist of my lips, pitching my voice just loud enough for those in the front to hear. "After all, he who pays the piper calls the tune." Xia Xiang came from a poor family. His mother died young, and his father was an alcoholic. As a result, with only $50 a week for living expenses, he was often so hungry that his stomach would cramp painfully during class. In my past life, my heart ached for his fragile pride. I would always accidentally bring an extra, hearty breakfast, pretend I couldn't finish it, and casually give it to him. Over time, his initial flustered refusals turned into silent acceptance. He maintained his pitiful sense of dignity by tutoring me in math. Truth be told, my math was never that bad, but for the sake of Xia Xiang's pride, I was more than happy to play along. On the first morning of my new life, I sat at my desk, leisurely enjoying the pork floss and cheese sandwich prepared by our housekeeper, accompanied by a glass of warm milk. Xia Xiang walked into the classroom as usual, head bowed, carrying an air of deliberately cultivated melancholy. He sat down in his usual seat and habitually reached into his desk cubby, only to find it empty. His body stiffened slightly, and he turned his head in stunned confusion. His lips parted slightly, as if he wanted to say something. I pretended not to notice. I picked up my glass of milk, took a sip, and closed my eyes in contentment. My gaze swept past him, settling on the morning sun outside the window. He seemed restless all morning. Several times, under the guise of passing back assignments, He looked at me as if on the verge of speaking, only to hold his tongue, and I, for my part, continued to treat him as if he were thin air. "Xiaohan, you didn't bring breakfast for Xia, the top student, today," my desk mate finally couldn't hold back and asked me again in a hushed voice. Her voice wasn't loud, but in the quiet break between classes, it was enough for the eavesdroppers in the front row to hear clearly. I flashed a perfectly natural smile, my voice clear and bright. "What's it to you? He doesn't pay me, so why should I bring it for him every single day?" The moment the words left my mouth, I saw Xia Xiang's back stiffen abruptly. The nape of his neck, visible above his uniform collar, flushed from pale to crimson in an instant, as if he'd been slapped hard across the face. For the rest of the entire day, he never once looked back. As the evening self-study bell rang, I, a day student, stood by the teacher's desk and raised my voice. "Anyone need breakfast from outside the school tomorrow morning? No delivery fee, just pay for the food." The boarding students immediately cheered and crowded around, all talking at once about what they wanted to order. In an instant, my desk was covered in loose change and little notes scribbled with their food requests. Amid the bustling crowd, I caught sight of Xia Xiang sitting alone at his seat, his back looking frail and forlorn. "Ha, what a poser, Xia Xiang," I called out deliberately as the crowd quieted slightly, my voice laced with harmless amusement. "What would you like to eat?" As if finally hearing my inquiry. The tension in his shoulders eased almost imperceptibly. He turned around, a flicker of hopeful anticipation in his eyes at being acknowledged. "In that case, I'll have the jianbing from Granny on West Street, no scallions, please." With that, he began to turn back out of habit, as if the matter were already settled. "Sure," I said, my smile unwavering as I extended my hand toward him. "Palm up, $7. The air instantly went still. The classmates gathered around also fell silent, their eyes darting back and forth between us. Xia Xiang's face drained of all color in an instant. He lowered his head awkwardly, his hands fumbling in the faded pockets of his school uniform. After a long pause, he spoke up again, his voice tinged with embarrassment. I'll give it to you tomorrow." "Sorry, no credit," I cut him off, looking down at him. "Xia, the top student, you can't just keep freeloading forever, can you?" The probing, suddenly understanding gazes from those around us pricked at him like needles. A few people in the know sensed the unusual tension between us but wisely kept their mouths shut. He kept his head bowed stubbornly, wishing he could just shrink into the floor and disappear. "I'll cover it for him." A girl pushed her way forward and slapped a 5 yuan bill and 2 coins onto my desk with a sharp clink. Xia Xiang said nothing, practically fleeing the classroom. I stood amidst the crowd, watching his retreating figure with disgust, a cold emptiness settling in my heart. "Xia Xiang, this is just the beginning. Your self-respect is utterly worthless." 3. Just like in the previous life, this month, that delinquent girl from outside the school, Lin Yan, once again began her relentless stalking and harassment of Xia Xiang, and I just watched from the sidelines. I watched him get cornered at the school gate, watched him duck into an alley, watched his brow furrow in distress, saw the fear in his eyes, until, eventually, he was too afraid to walk home alone. Several times after school, I saw his gaunt figure lingering hesitantly near my family's car. His gaze carried a sickening mix of haughtiness and self-pity. Time and again, it landed on the car window. He was waiting for me to roll it down, just like old times, and gently invite him in for a ride home. But now, in this life, I simply raised the dark-tinted glass with an expressionless face, shutting him and his nauseating performance out completely. Through the icy glass, I watch him hunch his shoulders at the school gate, like a stray dog, looking both pitiful and ridiculous in the biting wind. The final moments of my past life flashed before my eyes, unbidden. Him and Lin Yan on the hotel's rumpled sheets, the sheer viciousness in his eyes as he choked me. "If only you weren't barren." A wave of gut-wrenching nausea hit me, and hatred, like a venomous fire, seared my very soul. Unable to bear it any longer, Xia Xiang took the initiative to go to the local police station, seeking help from the officers in an attempt to use external force to break free from Lin Yan. The officer at that local police station happened to be a distant cousin of Lin Yan's father. This cousin casually mentioned the matter to Lin Yan's hot-tempered father, a man deeply concerned with saving face. The outcome was predictable. Lin Yan got a brutal, no-holds-barred thrashing with a leather belt from her father. This so-called lesson at home completely ignited the fury she felt towards Xia Xiang, a fury born of unrequited love. She blamed Xia Xiang for every ounce of that humiliation and pain, so she rounded up a gang of the delinquents she usually hung out with, determined to finally teach Xiaoxiang a lesson he wouldn't forget. 4. The realization that Xiaoxiang might also have been reborn struck me that afternoon, the very day he got beaten up by Lin Yan. I had gone there that afternoon just to watch the drama unfold. I never expected to hear Xiaoxiang confess his feelings to Lin Yan. 5. No, please, I'm begging you. Let me go. Xiaoxiang's tearful plea echoed from the bathroom. Lin Yan took a slow drag from his cigarette, deliberately exhaling a ring of white smoke that drifted directly towards Xiaoxiang's ashen face. You should be honored I even looked your way, and you had the nerve to snitch. You think you're something special. Her voice carried her signature streetwise edge, her gaze menacing. Her lackeys chimed in with mocking snickers, delivering another round of brutal affection to Xiaoxiang's stomach and back. Last time I'm asking, Lin Yan said, sweeping her hair back and leaning in with her heavily smudged eyeshadow. Do you agree or not? No, Xiaoxiang refused almost instinctively, a sliver of hope still lingering in his heart that someone would come to save him. However, the rescue he anticipated never came, for in the very next moment, the consciousness of Xiaoxiang, now accomplished and long past his youthful naivety, crashed violently into the 17-year-old body currently being bullied. He blinked in astonishment, staring at the rebellious, heavily made up yet undeniably young Lin Yan before him. In a flash, he made his decision. Without a moment's hesitation, he scrambled up from the filthy ground, ignoring the dust on his clothes, and dropped to one knee before Lin Yan, in a tone utterly different from before. He spoke with deep feeling. Nian Nian, I know you have feelings for me, let's be together, okay? 6. The sudden plot twist left everyone speechless. The surrounding lackeys exchanged bewildered glances, their raised fists frozen in midair. The cigarette fell from Lin Yan's lips with a sharp clack, scattering sparks on the ground. She was utterly stunned, completely unprepared for Xiaoxiang's complete 180 in attitude. Really? She pressed him suspiciously, utterly bewildered. Xiaoxiang's mind was flooded with images from last night, the passionate, steamy scenes with the mature and alluring Lin Yan, staring at this youthful version of his mistress. He couldn't care less about the setting. He rose directly, took a step forward, cupped Lin Yan's face with a domineering air, and kissed her fiercely. Lin Yan had dated quite a few people, but this was the first time it had been so thrilling and full of such stark contrast, since her goal was achieved. After a moment of stunned silence, she also felt a thrill of conquest. 0. Nian Nian, Xiaoxiang gasped as he pulled away, his forehead resting against hers, his voice deliberately lowered, laced with temptation. I'll make up for all those lost years between us. The surrounding entourage snapped out of their shock and immediately erupted into jeering screams, pulling out their phones to frantically take photos and videos of the man and woman who had just been at each other's throats but were now locked in an embrace. And I, standing quietly in the shadows at the mouth of the alley, held up my phone and clearly pressed the red stop recording button. What a magnificent, masochistic love story. 7. I put away my phone and slipped away from the chaotic alleyway without a sound. Xiaoxiang's defection clearly pleased Lin Yan. From that day on, the two of them were secretly together, but Xiaoxiang knew all too well that in her youth, Lin Yan had nothing but the nerve to run with the wrong crowd. He relished her youthful body and blind adoration, but what he truly craved was the lavish, high-rolling lifestyle of his past life. After one of their intimate moments, he held Lin Yan close and whispered in her ear, Nian Nian, all you'll get by staying with me now is hardship, but once we get our hands on the Yan family's money, what kind of good life won't be ours? He painted a picture of a future filled with mansions, sports cars, and designer bags. Repackaging my plan as a grand strategy for the sake of their love, Lin Yan flew into a rage the moment she heard my name, but Xiaoxiang knew her too well. He used a mix of carrot and stick, and the harsh reality did the rest. After all, the current Xiaoxiang could barely afford to buy her a decent cup of bubble tea. In the end, she agreed, albeit with great reluctance. After all, in her worldview, concepts like morality don't exist, it's all about the money. And so, at school, Xiaoxiang began his clumsy performance. He seemed to have completely forgotten about the cold shoulder I'd given him all month since my rebirth, and instead, started showering me with attention. His eyes held a vulgar, calculating glint, with an affectation that was impossible to miss. Every time I saw him, my stomach would churn, so I responded with the most direct form of ignoring him. I'd skirt his desk when collecting assignments, tune out his comments during discussions, and let my gaze pass over him as if he were thin air. After several such instances, the confusion in Xia Xiang's eyes gradually gave way to shock and suspicion. He tentatively placed a bottle of the brand of drink I used to favor in my past life on the corner of my desk. I picked it up and, right in front of him, tossed it expressionlessly into the trash bin behind me. At that moment, I saw it clearly. His pupils contracted sharply, and the color drained from his face. He understood. Yang Han, the one who had once cherished him like a treasure and was willing to give everything for him, had also returned, and she was back with a deep-seated, bone-chilling hatred for him. All his scheming and performances had become nothing but a pathetic joke in my eyes. 8. With the path of seducing me completely blocked, Xia Xiang was seized by a brief panic, which was quickly replaced by the arrogance of a reborn man. I will definitely give you a good life, he said, holding Lin Yen. His tone brimming with a blustering certainty. He was comforting Lin Yen, but even more so, he was trying to convince himself. Yen, you know what? I have the business trends and opportunities of the next decade right here in my head. Even without relying on that Yang Han, I, Xia Xiang, can start from scratch and make it big. Wait for me, Yen. Wait until I get into a top university with my college entrance exam results. You have to wait for me. Xia Xiang had long been intoxicated by the success of his past life and the sense of superiority that came with knowing the future. He had completely overestimated his ability to control this young mind and the vast amount of information within it. Those vague business concepts, without detailed data support and a strong execution team, were nothing more than castles in the air. I'm well aware of all this, so I'm not worried that Xia Xiang could make a comeback without any support. With nothing to his name, what's he going to rebuild? His empty house and 4 bare walls. 9. At first, Xia Xiang had a flicker of concern, worried that I, as a reborn individual, would use my foreknowledge to target him with precision. After observing for a while, he realized I was simply treating him as if he didn't exist. To his own relief, and somewhat absurdly, he actually felt grateful for it. The law can't touch a past life, he consoled himself this way. Interpreting my deep-seated hatred as a kind of unspoken agreement to leave each other alone, since the shortcut was a dead end, he decided to lay low for the time being. Relying on his ahead-of-his-time knowledge, he would make a stunning splash in the college entrance exams, get into a more prestigious university than in his previous life, and use that as a springboard. However, reality dealt him a harsh blow, a stark contrast to his lofty ideals. Years after graduation, he had long since forgotten every last bit of the tedious foundational knowledge from high school, formulas, theorems, classical Chinese texts. For a former CEO accustomed to strategizing at banquets and in boardrooms, content that required patient memorization and deep understanding felt like pure torture. He was used to having his secretary place neatly compiled reports on his desk, and to his subordinates presenting various options for his review and decision. And now he was expected to work out a solid geometry problem from scratch and memorize a lengthy English passage all by himself. Just the thought of those complex symbols and the rote memorization passages was enough to give him a genuine, physical headache and a wave of irritation. His math grades had plummeted, falling from the top of his class to barely scraping a passing mark. His performance in other subjects that required long-term accumulation of knowledge was even more of a disaster. Having been out of the learning environment for so long, he had long since lost both the patience and the ability to focus and delve deeply into anything amidst the pressures of societal competition. Seeing my name firmly entrenched in the top 10 of the honor roll, his resentment towards me grew ever more intense. He couldn't understand why I was making such rapid progress after my rebirth, while he remained stuck in place. What he didn't know was that the private tutor my parents hired for me, at 1,000 yuan per session, was worth every penny, a level of service and privilege he could never hope to attain in his lifetime. 10. During the winter break following the end of his first semester of senior year, Xia Xiang completely abandoned his dream of getting into a good university. What drove him to this decision wasn't just academic failure, but the immense torment brought on by poverty. Having grown accustomed to a life of extravagance, he found his current hand-to-mouth existence utterly unbearable. He even had to endure the harsh criticism from his alcoholic father. Countless times, he wanted to smash a bottle over that man's head, but for the sake of survival and his future, he held back those thoughts. What was even more humiliating was that he had to agonize over every penny just to afford a decent street food meal for Lin Yan. As a result, Lin Yan gradually lost patience with him. She was never short of men trying to win her favor. Most of them were deadbeats, sure, but at least they could buy her drinks, take her to karaoke, and give her cheap but pretty trinkets. Xiao Xiang, on the other hand, had nothing substantial to offer, just a reasonably handsome face and a mouth full of empty promises. All he ever talked about was the future and landing those multi-billion-dollar deals. Sometimes she wondered if he'd completely lost his mind. What truly pushed their relationship to the brink of collapse was the way reality eroded their passion. They couldn't afford a hotel room, so their dates were confined to, censored, but you get the idea. The initial affection and novelty had long since been worn away by this kind of squalor and indignity. Each time felt like a sordid transaction, utterly devoid of warmth. Every time she looked at Xiao Xiang, she found the man before her utterly devoid of charm. Thus, the look in Lin Yan's eyes shifted from initial conquest to undisguised disdain and impatience. Xiao Xiang panicked. He felt that none of this was what he had wanted, and so, he came begging to me again. 11. Driven to the brink by reality, Xiao Xiang's mind gave birth to a mad and despicable idea. He found me, no longer feigning affection, but with a twisted, self-destructive desperation, blocking my path home from school. Yang Han, he rasped, his voice hoarse, his eyes a mix of resentment and a sickening sense of duty. His breath reeked of decay. I know you hate me, but I owed you from our past life. Let me make it up to you in this one. I stared at him coldly, as if looking at a pile of putrid filth. Seeing my silence, he seemed to take it as encouragement and began speaking urgently. I can't let your family's legacy die out. I swear I'll get you pregnant in this lifetime. That's the greatest amends I can make to you. His following words were cut off by the sharp crack of my slap. Amends? I nearly laughed out loud. With your disgusting body and your scheming, Xiao Xiang, you're rotten to the core. He covered his face, a flash of malice in his eyes, as if he still wanted to make trouble, but I didn't give him the chance. I pulled out my phone right in front of him and dialed the police. He thought I was just bluffing. Until the police car came screaming in and took him away. The drink he had planned to spike was discovered by me long ago and submitted as evidence, with conclusive surveillance footage, witness testimonies, and physical evidence, combined with my unwavering refusal to settle and the legal pressure applied by my lawyer. Xiao Xiang's conviction for indecent assault was a foregone conclusion, content redacted here. But that wasn't enough. While he was in custody, I anonymously posted the video I had recorded earlier in the restroom, showing him on his knees professing his love and embracing Lin Yan, to the largest local online forum. The headline was blunt and sarcastic, the true face of a devoted top student at a Haicheng high school, a masochist and a school bully's sincere love story. Although the video was quickly taken down by the platform for involving minors, it had already been downloaded and shared by countless people. In an instant, Xiao Xiang and Lin Yan became the laughingstock of the entire city of Haicheng. In the end, due to its egregious nature, it caused severe negative social repercussions. Xiao Xiang was sentenced to 5 years in prison. 12. I didn't waste another second of my time on him. With the foresight of a reincarnator, I precisely guided the direction of my family business through several critical transformations, to steer my parents' company through the economic tides, riding the waves to ever greater prosperity. After high school, I chose to study abroad, acquiring knowledge and broadening my horizons at one of the world's top institutions. 5 years is enough time to change a great many things. Upon returning with my education complete, I took over the family business with undeniable capability and vision, becoming the youngest and most talked about rising star in Haicheng's business world. I've stepped into the spotlight. No longer the woman silently sacrificing from behind the scenes, under the glare of the flashbulbs. I am poised and confident, no longer that foolish girl who would take a knife for a scumbag. I cannot deny the courage of my past love-struck fervor, nor will I belittle the self from a past life who was deceived, because the one at fault, the guilty one, was never me. Even though I didn't go out of my way to ask about Xiao Xiang, busybodies still made sure to tell me all about it. The year Xiao Xiang went to prison, Lin Yan discovered she was pregnant. Her chaotic lifestyle and multiple previous, poorly handled abortions led her doctor to warn that if she terminated this pregnancy, she might never be able to have children. Left with no other choice, she gritted her teeth and had the baby. The child was born with severe deformities, including congenital imperforate anus and severe atrophy of both hands, a result of the mother's smoking and heavy drinking during pregnancy. As one might expect, Lin Yan was beaten half to death by her furious father and thrown out of the house. with nowhere else to go, she dragged her frail body and her child into Xia Xiang's home, a place with bare walls and a father who was a heavy drinker, the crushing weight of life, the judgmental whispers of others, and the vile attitude of Xia Xiang's father ground down the last vestiges of her youthful arrogance, leaving behind only numbness and resentment. 5 years later. A high school reunion. In the opulent private dining room of the hotel, old classmates chatted and laughed, catching up on each other's lives. My former deskmate, now a teacher at a middle school, sat down beside me, looking at the confident, formidable person I had become. She was filled with a profound sense of nostalgia. I never would have thought, Yang Han, she murmured, her voice tinged with a hint of lingering fear. Xia Xiang seemed like such a reserved and driven person back then. How could he have done something so terrible? I swirled the red wine in my glass, my gaze calm as I looked out at the city's neon lights. More often than not, a person's core nature doesn't fundamentally change just because their circumstances do. My voice was soft, carrying the clarity of one who sees the world for what it is. They are merely in an environment that amplifies their own desires, for things they never truly possessed, or once had and lost. They become inordinately covetous, to the point of resorting to any means, becoming utterly detestable. My deskmate nodded thoughtfully. 14. After serving his 5-year sentence, Xia Xiang stepped out through the prison gates. The sunlight outside the high walls was so harsh it made him squint, yet it still managed to illuminate the deep-seated numbness and weariness etched in his eyes. These 5 years had worn away the laughable arrogance he'd carried upon his rebirth, forcing him to confront a brutal, bloody truth with crystal clarity. Every step of his so-called success in his previous life was soaked in my sacrifices and irrigated by the resources of my family. Without me, he is nothing. He dragged his simple luggage back to the dilapidated place from his memory, the only place he could still call home. Yet, what awaited him at home was a hell more suffocating than any prison. Lin Yan had long been worn down by poverty and the burden of child-rearing, her youthful arrogance completely gone, leaving behind only a bitter resentment towards life and a deep-seated loathing for him. She didn't even bother to look up when she saw him return, greeting him with nothing but icy scorn. Well, look who's back, the ex-con. Don't expect any handouts here. His alcoholic father was even more indifferent toward this son who had brought shame upon the family. What cut Xia Xiang the deepest was his own son, born with a disability, huddled in the corner. He was also exceptionally withdrawn, not even looking at Xia Xiang, just fiddling with the empty cigarette pack. A wave of overwhelming despair washed over Xia Xiang. His life felt like it was trapped in a rusted, lightless iron cage, but he refused to accept it, that last shred of pride from his past life, or perhaps that impractical fantasy, was still clinging on, refusing to die. He tried to battle it out in the stock market, relying on the scraps of financial knowledge he remembered, desperate to grasp at a final lifeline. But in this life, due to the intervention of a reborn butterfly like me, the landscape of many industries and the fates of countless companies had already shifted in ways he couldn't foresee. The surefire stocks from his memory either performed mediocrely or, in some cases, plummeted disastrously. After all his struggles, he could only scrape together a meager living, far from enough to change his family's dire situation, let alone fulfill his ambition to turn his life around. Fate's cruel jokes came one after another. One late night, he stumbled upon a shocking scene. His drunken father, entangled with Lin Yan, their clothes in disarray. Overwhelming humiliation and rage instantly shattered Xia Xiang's reason. He roared and lunged forward, vowing to expose their disgusting act of incest. In the chaos, the two whose shame he had exposed, driven by extreme fear and humiliation, were overcome by a murderous impulse. Seizing the moment while Xia Xiang was emotionally distraught and off guard, Lin Yan and his father exchanged a glance and, with unspoken understanding, worked together to pin him down forcefully on the tattered bed. There was struggling, kicking, and then, finally, silence. In the final, fading moments of consciousness, the scenes from his past life flashed through Xia Xiang's mind like a revolving lantern. In the hotel suite, how he and Lin Yan had used a silk scarf to tighten around Yang Han's neck from behind. So this was it, the karmic retribution, the wheel of cause and effect coming full circle. His eyes wide, he drew his last breath, his face frozen in an expression of boundless regret and the stark terror of final understanding. 15. In a brilliantly lit penthouse office somewhere in Haicheng, I was reviewing the company's strategic plan for the next quarter. Outside the window, the vibrant city nightscape glittered with neon lights, mirroring my own flourishing life. Everything concerning Xiaoxiang had long since vanished like dust scattered by a breeze, leaving not a single trace in my life. My world is vast and bright, and the future holds endless stars and seas for me to conquer. The end. Story 2. My sister and I were the most beautiful twins in the orphanage. Simultaneously noticed by a family of doctors and a top-tier wealthy family. In our past life, my sister chose the wealthy family for their fortune, stepping into that top-tier Maybach without hesitation. Little did she know what awaited her was a disabled, temperamental young master of the wealthy family. My sister was told she was his dog in life, and after the young master's death, she was forced to be buried alive with him, raised in a family of doctors. I became the golden prodigy of the hospital, pampered like a princess alongside my genius but aloof stepbrother. My sister, consumed by jealousy, stabbed me to death on my wedding day. Why should I be the only one living such a miserable life? When I opened my eyes again, we had returned to the day we were adopted. This time, my sister took the initiative to hold the doctor's wife's hand first. I smiled as I watched her triumphant figure walk away. Can't even outplay a brainless rich young master. And you think you can outsmart a cunning Yandere? 1. The Shen and Li families left the choice to me and my sister, Cici, Ran. The two of you decide for yourselves who you want to go with. I was just about to say I wouldn't choose either when my sister eagerly took Madame Shen's hand. Auntie, you're so beautiful, and you have such a lovely fragrance. I want to go with you. At that moment, I realized my sister must have also been reborn. Because she made a completely different choice from our previous life. On this day in our past life, both the medical Shen family and the wealthiest Li family came to the orphanage to select children, explicitly requesting girls. My sister and I, being the most beautiful twins in the orphanage, were immediately chosen by both the Shen and Li families. They also gave the choice to us sisters. That year, my sister and I were only 8 years old. None of us had much understanding of medicine. But upon hearing the term richest man, my sister eagerly grabbed the hand of the richest man's wife, exclaiming, "Auntie, you're so beautiful, I'll go with you." Just like that, my sister left with the richest man, while I was taken home by the Shen family of medicine. Over a decade later, I became the golden-handed surgeon at the hospital, and the childhood bond with my foster brother became a celebrated tale, with everyone saying we were a match made in heaven. Whether it was my foster parents or my foster brother, they all treated me with utmost kindness. To outsiders, I am the little princess of the Shen family, the object of envy and jealousy for thousands, having reached Rome by being adopted by the Shens. Among them is my sister. It turns out that after she returned home with the tycoon, she never had a single good day. The tycoon's family has complicated relationships, including a stepmother renowned for her virtue and a deranged, gloomy son. The reason the richest man's wife wanted to adopt a girl was publicly stated as giving her stepson a younger sister to make him happy. Privately, however, she had a different explanation when speaking to the sister. "Cici, the reason I brought you back is for you to play with your brother and keep him happy. Remember, your brother is everything to you. If he's well, you'll be well. If anything happens to him, you must be buried with him. Do you understand?" The sister tried to run away several times, but was always caught and brought back by the powerful and influential richest family. The richest man's stepson initially had no interest in his sister, but her repeated escape attempts caught his attention. Like a grasshopper tied to a string, no matter how much it struggles and tries, it can't escape the restraint of the rope. Thus, the sister truly became the human plaything of the Li family. She grew up in such an environment, her personality already twisted, so when she saw how well the Shen family had raised me, spoiling me like a little princess, the jealousy in her heart turned into raging flames, burning away her last shred of reason. On the day of my wedding to my adoptive brother, my sister rushed at me with a knife and stabbed me to death. In the second before I collapsed, I heard her screaming hysterically, "Why am I the only one living such a miserable life?" Yet the very next moment, the knife embedded in my heart was pulled out. It's my foster brother indeed. His face was expressionless, his pitch-black eyes utterly calm, yet he kept stabbing my sister over and over, until my sister too collapsed on the ground. I turned my head to look at my sister one last time, then breathed my last. Now that I've been reborn, I never want to repeat the mistakes of my past life. But my sister pushed me in front of the tycoon's wife, saying, "Little sister, the life of wealth and luxury in the tycoon's family is all yours now. Don't thank me too much." The tycoon's wife held my hand and said with a smile, Ran, come home with mom. I turned my head to look at my sister. My sister also smiled with squinted eyes and waved at me. Goodbye, little sister. I couldn't help but laugh too. Sister, since you're so determined to steal the life I had in my previous existence, then, don't you dare regret it, too. I still followed the billionaire's wife home. Not only because I'm still a child now. If I refused adoption by the billionaire's family, the orphanage director wouldn't get benefits and might retaliate against me, but also because I'm quite covetous of the billionaire's wealth. As soon as we entered the villa, the billionaire's wife immediately called the butler. Quick, bring the young master down. The butler nodded in agreement and promptly took someone upstairs. In no time, an enraged voice came from upstairs. Get out. And tell that woman to get out too. I looked up at the billionaire's wife. The billionaire's wife's gaze was fixed on the upstairs. From this angle, I could see the cold glint and triumph in her eyes. Suddenly, she lowered her eyes to look at me, her gaze sharp. What are you looking at? Scared. I tried my best to act like a child, timidly hiding behind her. Mommy, is that Big Brother? He looks so scary. The billionaire's wife firmly grasped my small hand and led me upstairs. The furious voice grew louder and clearer, yet the billionaire's wife smiled gently and brought me to that room. Qingyan, why are you throwing such a big tantrum again? Look quickly, guess who I brought for you? As she spoke, she pushed me toward Li Qingyan. This is your little sister. See, isn't she pretty and adorable? From now on you'll have a sister to keep you company. A flying vase interrupted the billionaire's wife mid-sentence. Mom, watch out. I used the opportunity of pushing the billionaire's wife aside to dodge the vase myself. Li Qingyan's voice grew increasingly furious, his eyes burning with deep hatred. Get out, all of you, leave first. The billionaire's wife waved her hand, dismissing the butler and servants. She held my shoulders with both hands, bent down, and said to me, Ran, from now on you must take good care of your brother. Whatever he says, you must obey. The reason I brought you back is for you to play with your brother and keep him happy. Remember, your brother is everything to you. If he's well, you're well. If anything happens to him, you must be buried with him. Do you understand? I pouted my lips, forcing out a tear. Mommy, I'm scared. The billionaire's wife's gaze suddenly turned sharp and icy. Afraid of what? Go play with your brother. She released me and stood up straight, smiling kindly and gently at the furious Li Qingyan. Qingyan, you play with your sister. Auntie won't disturb you too. With that, she left, carefully closing the door behind her. I watched the billionaire's wife leave, wiped the tears from my cheeks, and turned back to face Li Qingyan without a trace of fear left. Li Qingyan's icy gaze bore down on me, his thin lips parting slightly as he coldly spat out a single word. Get out. I stepped forward. I won't. Li Qingyan narrowed his eyes dangerously. You're just a dog that woman sent to spy on me. Aren't you afraid I'll kill you? I raised an eyebrow. Kill me, and you'll never stand up again in this lifetime. Fury returned to Li Qingyan's flawless face. You're looking for death. I glanced back at the door again to ensure the billionaire's wife wasn't eavesdropping, then lowered my voice to a volume only Li Qingyan could hear. I can cure your legs. Li Qingyan laughed in extreme anger, scanning me up and down. You. An 8-year-old girl. Yes, me. I took another step forward, closing the distance between us. Besides, right now I'm the only one you can trust. Li Qingyan finally noticed something was off about me. Who exactly are you? I shrugged. Just an 8-year-old little girl. Li Qingyan scoffed lightly. That woman is truly formidable. She can find anyone. It seems I can't underestimate you. It's not that woman who's formidable. It's me. I extended my hand. I'll heal your legs. Once you regain control of the Li family, you can deal with that woman however you wish, but don't forget to repay me. My medical skills don't come for free. Li Qingyan, at that moment, his face finally showed the confusion and bewilderment befitting a 15-year-old boy. You, just who exactly are you? I moved closer, leaning into Li Qingyan's ear, and whispered, an 8-year-old little girl. Li Qingyan, 3. In the following days, I began living a double life of outward compliance and secret defiance, while pretending to be afraid of Li Qingyan in front of the tycoon's wife, acting reluctant to accompany him. I was threatened by her several times, while secretly examining Li Qingyan's condition and formulating a treatment plan. This treatment method was developed by the Shen family in my previous life, but that was 10 years later. But now, I'm the only one who knows this treatment method, an 8-year-old girl. However, Li Qingyan still doesn't believe me. You're acting all mysterious every day. If I find out you're lying to me, I'll make sure you die without a burial place. I crouched beside Lai Chenjian's legs and couldn't help rolling my eyes at his words. If you're so capable, how come you've been suppressed by your stepmother all this time? Wouldn't it be better to just make her disappear without a trace? Lai Chenjian choked on his words. I soothingly patted his leg. Brother, just relax. I always keep my promises, and I'm still waiting for you to repay me. Lai Chenjian looked at me with a mixture of doubt and hope. So when exactly will I be able to stand up again? Shoo. I pressed a finger to my lips. If your stepmother hears this, you'll be dead and buried. The wife of the richest man was undoubtedly a formidable figure. After quietly eliminating the tycoon, she used the same methods to cripple Li Qingyan's legs, and now, although most of the shares in the Li Group are in Li Qingyan's hands, he hasn't come of age yet. Several scheming shareholders of the Li Group openly support the tycoon's widow, causing Li Qingyan's status as a cripple within the corporation to decline day by day, so the treatment still needs to be carried out secretly. Otherwise, if the richest man's wife finds out, I might really have to be buried alive with Li Qingyan. Brother, let's go abroad. It's perfect since both you and I need to attend school. Being overseas, away from your stepmother's watchful eyes, will make it easier for me to handle things. Li Qingyan wore an expression of sudden realization. So this is where you were leading me. Did that woman put you up to this? Trying to ship me abroad so she can finish me off directly? Why would she kill you? You're already crippled. Even if the shares are still in your hands, you're no threat to her anymore. She just wants me to keep an eye on you and torment you a little more. Li Qingyan silently looked at me, pondered for a moment, then nodded. All right. 4. Li Qingyan proposed to the tycoon's wife that he wanted to go abroad. The tycoon's wife was surprised. Qingyan, why do you suddenly want to go abroad? Li Qingyan said impatiently. I'm just informing you. Did you really think I was asking for your permission? The billionaire's wife smiled gently. Of course I'll support whatever you do. Go ahead then. I'll arrange for someone to find you a school and handle the paperwork. I secretly rejoiced on the side. This was obviously an act put on for the billionaire's wife. With just a glance from her, Ran, you should accompany your brother. I'll help you find a school too. I immediately made an extremely reluctant expression, almost crying, but the cold, stern voice of the tycoon's wife interrupted me. No buts. Don't forget your place. Li Qingyan patted my head with his paw and said maliciously, little sister, come abroad with your brother. In this life, you're my dog when alive, and my dead dog when dead. Just wait till I treat him. I'll make sure he suffers. But the thought of going abroad soon and being able to study lifted my spirits. At least in this lifetime, I can take control of my own life and live with dignity. As for my sister, she must be very happy now, right? Don't worry. Her so-called adoptive brother won't be able to hide his true colors for much longer. Suddenly, a demonic voice emerged in my mind without warning. Ran, who is that boy? Do you like him? Ran, you're so disobedient. Ran, do you like this chain? What about this cage? Brother really loves seeing you chained in the cage. That way, you belong to me alone. Ran, you're mine, not just in this life, but in all your future lives too. For eternity, you can only belong to me. Ran, ah, I covered my ears and screamed. The richest man's wife said sharply, Li Ran, are you crazy? Your brother just touched your head. Why are you screaming? I suddenly came to my senses and turned my head to meet Li Qingyan's probing gaze. Everything has changed in this lifetime. I let out a slight sigh of relief and shook my head. I'm sorry, I won't dare to do it again. It seems I still haven't completely erased the shadows from my past life from my heart, but fortunately, I'm about to go abroad, far away from here. 10 years later, my sister saw me in the university dormitory, utterly surprised. She ran, why are you also studying medicine? Didn't you go abroad? I smiled and reminded her, sister, my name is Li Ran now. This remark seemed to remind my sister of something. She scanned me up and down and suddenly burst out laughing. How about it? These years abroad haven't been easy, have they? It's not like back home, even if you wanted to call the police, they wouldn't stand up for you. I pretended not to understand. Sister, what are you talking about? My sister gave a knowing smile. All right, I get it. Just swallow your pride and bear it. I'm actually surprised that mad dog Li Qingyan has let you live this long. After all, you don't have the wits like I do to survive under his thumb. I continued pretending not to understand. Sister, why are you talking about my brother? The sister sneered contemptuously. You can't fool me. She ran. Oh no, I mean Li Ran. I just looked at her puzzledly without saying anything more, then went to organize my own luggage. At the dormitory entrance, the sound of heavy footsteps grew gradually closer. This voice seems etched into my genes, branded onto my very soul. Even after 10 years have passed, hearing this familiar voice again still makes my body stiffen involuntarily. The person has already walked in. I silently take a deep breath, stand up, and turn to face the man who entered, my adoptive brother from my past life, Shinyusho. But Shinyusho didn't even glance at me. His first look upon entering immediately locked onto my sister. My sister stood there stiff as concrete, her gaze frozen on Shinyusho as if she couldn't tear her eyes away. Shinyusho walked to my sister as if no one else existed, his pale hand gently caressing her cheek. When he spoke, his cool voice carried that distinctive tone of his, like shackles meant to imprison one's soul. Cece, why aren't you listening to your brother again? Didn't I tell you not to stay in the dorm? Come, let's go home with me. His voice was soft, yet carried an undeniable authority. My sister's body began to tremble, her voice quivering. I want to stay in the dorm, brother, please. Just let me make this decision for myself this once. Shinyusho smiled, so gently it seemed. His gaze at my sister like ice and fire colliding. That look, I knew it all too well. In my past life, Shinyusho used this exact gaze to shackle me. Be good, Cece. My sister swallowed hard, her choked sobs growing quieter as she pleaded. Brother, please, I beg you, I promise, I'll come home every Friday. The air around Shinyusho instantly turned icy. Is there a boy at school that you like? My sister shook her head vigorously. No, brother, believe me, there isn't any boy I like. Shinyusho seemed to notice me only then, as he slowly turned his head to look at me. The emotions in his eyes had already receded, leaving behind only an unreadable calm. But when he clearly saw my face, a fleeting look of surprise still flashed across his expression. He pulled his sister into his embrace, the corners of his lips curling into an almost imperceptible smile. Liran, so you're Cece's little sister, right? 6. Golden metal bars seemed to materialize before my eyes, the cage Shinyusho used to imprison me. My throat grew tighter, making even breathing difficult. Kneeling at his feet in the most wretched posture, with the most pitiful and helpless expression, I begged him through tears. Brother, please let me go. I'm begging you, please. I even kowtowed to him. Shinyusho crouched before me, his cold fingers slowly tilting my chin up. No, Ran, if I let you go and you run away, where would I find you? Ran, you know I can't live without you. These were things from my past life. That's right, they were things from my past life. I silently let out a sigh of relief and nodded with a smile. I'm Liran. Shinyusho smiled knowingly. No wonder our Cece insisted on living on campus. So she knew her younger sister had returned from abroad and wanted to reunite with her. He then turned to face my sister. Ran, I'll let you stay in the dormitory for a few days to experience it. I'll come pick you up in a few days. My sister's tense expression softened slightly as she nodded. Okay, thank you, brother. Shinyusho gently patted his sister's head. No need to say thank you to your brother. He lowered his head, placed a light kiss on his sister's forehead, stroked her cheek, then gave me a gentlemanly nod before leaving. My sister's legs gave way, and she collapsed onto the edge of the bed. I walked over, taking in my sister's pale face. Sister, what's wrong? Why are you so afraid of your brother? Has he treated you badly? My sister looked up at me like a robot recharged after running out of power, and suddenly burst into laughter. Liran, actually you didn't have it easy in your past life either, did you? Shinyusho is a freak. A devil, how could he possibly let you off? It's all fake, everything is fake. I was deceived by the facade you created. In your past life, you were also born into a living hell. The more she spoke, the more she laughed. I feel much more balanced now. Really, a chill ran through my heart. The reason she felt balanced was because she knew I had suffered greatly under Shinyusho's torment in my past life. Knew the Shin family had told Shinyusho, as long as you become a medical genius, we'll give you whatever you want. This little sister is just a toy for you to play with as you please. Knew I had been trapped in that cage for over half a year, living worse than a dog, so my sister could accept her own misfortune after all, the only condition being that I was equally miserable. 7. Beside my ear, my sister's voice continued, but soon such days will come to an end. Once I become a medical genius, everyone in the Shin family will have to obey me. And then it'll be my turn to torment them. A mischievous impulse rose within me, and I interrupted her sweet dream. Sister, what are you talking about? Why do I feel like you're not quite yourself this time we meet? My sister snapped out of her reverie and looked at me with a cold smile. it's not a dream, in the near future, what I said will definitely come true. Suddenly remembering something, she stared at me and asked, "Why are you studying medicine too? Don't tell me you're also. Have I been reborn too?" Actually, telling her wouldn't matter. Everything changed completely from the moment my sister chose the Shin family in this lifetime. No matter how much she schemes, it's useless. But I won't tell her I've been reborn. Let her believe she's the only one holding the script from her past life, waiting for her comeback. The greater the hope, the greater the disappointment. I want to see the look of despair on my sister's face, as revenge for her killing me in my past life. In my past life, my sister ended my life, and that's how I was able to escape, but I won't be grateful to her for that. I hate my sister, and I hate Shin Yushio even more, but in this lifetime, I only want to live my own life well, to exist like a normal person. I pretended not to understand and even called my sister crazy. My sister didn't care, no matter what. In this lifetime Shin Yushio loves me. In my past life I was killed by him, so why shouldn't I turn him into my murder weapon this time? Liran, whether you know something or not, behave yourself, or I'll have Shin Yushio kill you. He may be a pervert, but he's deeply in love with me. He'll definitely listen to me. I wanted to tell my sister that Shin Yushio is a devil, but isn't she one too? But I just shook my head helplessly. Sis, you're really seriously ill. 8. Every night, my sister calls Shin Yushio to report in. My phone also chimed with a notification at that moment. It was a WeChat message from Li Qingyan, brother. Disappeared just by going to college. Don't you know how to call your brother? Though it was just text, I could still detect a tone of tsundere arrogance in it. You're in the apartment near the university. If you're worried, just come see for yourself. What's the point of calling? To say, brother, I'm fine, don't worry, brother. Do I need to worry about an 18-year-old adult? You're going to college, not Myanmar. Now it's an 18-year-old adult. Not an 8-year-old little girl. Another message from Li Qingyan came through. Brother, I'll pick you up on Friday. That woman wants us to go back for a meal. The act must go on. Got it, brother. Good night. It's only past 7. What good night? During military training, the playground was bustling with activity, with many showcasing their talents, but I was really too tired, so I went back to the dorm to rest. The reason my sister came back so early is that she had to report to Shin Yushio and didn't want to be overheard. I heard it, brother. I really don't have a boy I like. The only reason I want to stay at school is to be with my younger sister. I like you, brother. I only like you. In my past life, Shin Yushio always forced me to say this phrase. His family only treated him as a tool for fame and reputation, never giving him even a shred of genuine affection. This is how someone starved of love to the extreme behaves, but this cannot be an excuse for him to torment others. If he's truly miserable from lack of love, then he should just die. I pushed the door open and went in. My sister was startled at first, but upon recognizing me, she immediately pulled me over. Brother, look, my sister has also returned to the dormitory. She has many things she wants to talk to me about too. Shin Yushio just glanced at me through the screen before saying goodbye to my sister. As the video call ended, a look of disgust finally surfaced on my sister's face. When she turned and noticed me watching her, she immediately glared fiercely. What are you looking at? I'm warning you. Behave yourself. Don't say anything you shouldn't. If you dare scheme anything, you'll be the one getting hurt in the end, in this lifetime. It's me whom Shin Yushio loves, I mocked with a laugh. Sister. You're always talking about past lives and this life. If you say these things just to me, fine. But if others hear you, they'll surely think you've gone mad. Also, I noticed you seem to really dislike your brother, yet you keep saying he only loves you. Could it be that you're suffering from Stockholm Syndrome? I'm not. My sister lowered her voice and muttered, I just really dislike him. She then asked me, don't you dislike Li Qingyan? You mean my brother? I shook my head and continued, no, I don't dislike him at all. My brother treats me extremely well. The elder sister sneered, stop pretending here. Would that crippled bastard treat you well? Shin Yushio is a pervert, but is that lame wretch any better? I should have refused to be adopted by them from the start. Who says it isn't so? In her previous life, she was clearly killed by Shin Yushio, yet after rebirth, she chose the Shin family without hesitation. If she had refused adoption, she could have lived a good life in this lifetime by utilizing the cheat from her past life. I feel the same way, yet we both still walked the same old path from our past lives, even though we exchanged each other's paths. But I'm confident that my path in this life will become faster and smoother as I walk it. 9. Friday, after finishing military training, I returned to the dormitory to change clothes. Preparing to go find Li Qingyan, my sister had also changed her clothes, and the two of us left the dormitory building together. Not far away, two luxury cars were parked side by side. The Bentley belonged to Shin Yuxiu, while the Aston Martin was Li Qingyan's. Upon seeing my sister, Shin Yuxiu got out of his car and walked gracefully towards us, directly taking her hand while giving me a friendly smile. "How have you two sisters been this week?" I was just about to speak when Li Qingyan's driver got out of the car. He took out a folding wheelchair, opened it, and then helped Li Qingyan get down and sit in the wheelchair. My sister looked over and instinctively held on to Shin Yuxiu's arm. Just as I have a shadow over Shin Yuxiu, my sister also has a shadow over Li Qingyan. Shin Yuxiu was flattered, looking down at my sister's hand tightly clutching his arm, the corner of his lips curling up silently. "What's wrong, Cece?" My sister snapped back to reality and gave Shin Yuxiu a sweet smile. "Nothing, I just missed you, brother." Shin Yuxiu's eyes were tender as water, lowering his head to place a kiss on his sister's forehead. "I missed you too." Li Qingyan had already arrived. He also recognized his sister at first glance. Although our living environments have differed greatly over the years, and our appearances are no longer as similar as before, it's still obvious at first glance that we're twins. Ran. "Is this your sister?" Li Chenjian gave her a faint smile. "Why didn't you tell me earlier?" Then he extended his hand toward the sister. The sister hesitated, shook hands with Li Chenjian, and said, "Don't blame my younger sister. Please don't hit her." This wasn't her speaking up for me at all. It was pure schadenfreude. A flash of surprise crossed Li Chenjian's expression as he glared at me. "Li Ran, is this how you tarnish my reputation outside? When have I ever hit you?" That wasn't me saying it, it was sister's assumption. "Besides, have you forgotten, when we first met, you immediately threw a vase at me?" Li Qingyan's eyelid twitched slightly. "Shut up." I immediately closed my mouth. Older sister burst out laughing. It was clear she was genuinely happy to see me doing poorly. Casting a sympathetic yet satisfied glance at me, my sister tightened her grip on Shin Yuxiu's arm. "Brother, let's go home." Shin Yuxiu responded indifferently, withdrawing his icy gaze from Li Qingyan's hand. "Let's go." Then he took my sister into the car. Suddenly, I got goosebumps. This feeling is all too familiar. Shin Yuxiu's possessiveness is acting up again, because sister shook hands with another man. Sister is going to have a tough night tonight. 10. Since returning to the country, I haven't met the tycoon's wife until now. Seeing her again, she seems unchanged, well-maintained and still as young and beautiful as ever. However, all these years, I've maintained contact with her because I needed to provide her with everything about Li Qingyan. The richest man's wife was quite satisfied with my performance. Li Qingyan is already 25 this year. After coming of age, he should have taken back the company, but it's still the richest man's wife who calls the shots. The richest man's wife got carried away too. At the dinner table, she actually said directly to Li Qingyan, "Qingyan, you've been abroad all these years and haven't inquired much about the company's affairs. I, on the other hand, have managed the company very well. It's just that I'm not the largest shareholder after all, which makes decision-making quite inconvenient." She paused briefly before continuing. "Qingyan, transfer your shares to my name. If you're uneasy, I'll buy them from you. We're family. After your father passed, I've treated you like my own son. Don't you trust me?" Li Qingyan set down his chopsticks, his tone measured, striking just the right chord in everyone's hearts. The billionaire's wife stared unblinkingly at Li Qingyan, her smile still perfectly poised. Li Qingyan slowly raised his gaze to meet hers, lips curving slightly. "Since it's inconvenient for you, I'll officially take over the company starting tomorrow. No need to trouble you anymore, Auntie." The billionaire's wife didn't take Li Qingyan's words to heart. "Qingyan, there are some things Auntie fears might hurt your pride if said, but they must be spoken." Her gaze fell on Li Qingyan's legs. "Your legs? The company still has some reservations about them. Having outsiders see the Li Group led by someone with a disability would significantly damage the corporation's prestige." Li Qingyan nodded, appearing to agree with the billionaire's wife's words. The billionaire's wife smiled contentedly. "Then, name your price." "You set the price." Li Qingyan placed both hands on the wheelchair armrests. "I'll buy your shares." The billionaire's wife smiled and said, "You still don't understand what I mean." "I understand." Li Qingyan slowly stood up and walked step by step toward her under the billionaire's wife's shocked gaze. "Now, may I take over the company?" The billionaire's wife's eyes widened, her gaze seemingly nailed to Li Qingyan's face. After a long pause, she finally spoke. How How are you standing? Suddenly struck by a thought, the tycoon's wife abruptly stood up. Li Ran, you betrayed me. I shrugged innocently. You've been threatening me all along, even saying you'd make me die for my brother's funeral. Did you really expect me to stay loyal to you? The tycoon's wife flew into a rage and was about to charge at me when Li Qingyan suddenly grabbed her by the throat. Compared to Li Qingyan's calm composure, the tycoon's wife's face quickly turned as red as a tomato. She struggled violently, all traces of her elegant nobility vanishing completely. Let me go. As Li Chenjian loosened his grip, the billionaire's wife went limp and collapsed heavily onto the ground. Li Chenjian looked down at her with a cold smile. Auntie, I know you have much to say, but not now. Save your words for the police. Over the past decade, although Li Qingyan was abroad, he wasn't idle, receiving my treatment while gathering evidence of the billionaire's wife's crimes. A decade is enough time to accomplish anything. Li Qingyan has already handed over all the evidence to the police, proving the billionaire's wife murdered her husband and crippled Li Qingyan's legs. Soon after, the billionaire's wife was taken into custody. Li Qingyan officially took over the Li Group. As for those who sided with the billionaire's wife, they're now struggling to protect themselves and can't cause any trouble. I stayed by Li Qingyan's side the entire weekend until he assumed the chairman's position. I reached out my hand to him. You promised me. Can you give it to me now? Li Qingyan slightly furrowed his ink-dark brows and tapped my palm with his large hand. What are you in such a hurry for? I pouted and withdrew my hand. Li Qingyan shook his head with a smile. Don't worry, you won't miss out. I'll first set up a laboratory for you. Once you graduate from university, you can establish your own medical team. When has your brother ever broken a promise to you? I giggled and wrapped my arms around Li Qingyan's neck from behind. Brother, you're so good. Li Qingyan patted my arm. You're 18 now, not an 8-year-old girl anymore. Be more careful. He's quite the gentleman. 11. On Monday when I returned to school, as expected, I didn't see my sister. She didn't participate in military training, and surprisingly, the instructor didn't say anything about it. It was clear that Shin Yusho had already made arrangements with the school. It wasn't until half a month later, long after we had finished our military training, that my sister finally returned. This time when I saw her, it was obvious she seemed like someone whose soul had been taken over, leaving behind only a walking corpse. I noticed she was wearing high-necked clothes. Even without looking underneath, I knew there must be marks from being tied around her neck. I gently patted her. My sister immediately jumped up as if electrocuted, like a startled bird. No, what are you doing, sister? What's wrong with you? My sister kept shaking her head. I'm fine, she suddenly shouted. None of your business. I shrugged. I can't be bothered with you either. My sister grabbed my arm abruptly, her pitch-black eyes staring at me intensely as if trying to suck me in. Little sister, let's switch back. She shook her head. No, I mean, I'm not feeling well. Could you accompany me to the hospital tomorrow? I was about to refuse when a fleeting image flashed through my mind, and some terrifying memory surged forth with my current intuition. I lowered my gaze, letting it rest on my sister's belly. Could it be what I'm thinking? The hospital my sister mentioned must be the Shin family's private hospital. In my past life, when I was 18 years old, Shin Yusho took me there. He personally performed the surgery, removed my uterus, then smiled with satisfaction and whispered in my ear, Ran, now you won't get pregnant, without children. From now on, you'll belong to your brother alone. Is Shin Yusho going to remove my sister's uterus too? Does sister want me to go instead of her? I clenched my fists tightly, but still couldn't hold back, raising my hand to slap my sister hard across the face, as if she couldn't feel the pain. My sister grabbed my arm tightly again. Little sister, you must come with me. You have to go. You must go. I pushed her away violently and said in the most vicious tone, Shushi, go to hell. I ran out of the dormitory and called Li Qingyan. Soon my sister came out too, chasing after me like a vengeful ghost. Little sister, don't run, come back. I kept running toward the school gate until I crashed headlong into Li Qingyan's arms. Catch her, my sister shrieked. Seeing me stop, she laughed excitedly and charged at me. Little sister, aren't you my good sister? Since you're my sister, you should sacrifice yourself for me. Li Qingyan pushed his sister away as she leaned in. His sister's expression turned fierce, about to lunge at him, but when she clearly saw Li Qingyan's face, she froze in shock. After a long while, she finally snapped out of it, shaking her head frantically. Your legs, how are you standing? Why is this happening? You too, Li Qingyan, let her go. Why are you protecting her? Wouldn't it be better if she died? Shouldn't you hate her? What, you still don't know, do you? She's your stepmother's pawn, she's been spying on you for her, and she even wants you dead. Li Qingyan shielded me tightly behind him. At that moment, Shin Yuxiu arrived, 12, when my sister saw Shin Yuxiu. She completely broke down. She immediately knelt at Shin Yuxiu's feet. Brother, please spare me, don't alter my brain, I'll die. She suddenly pointed at me again. Xu Ran is your sister, she should be your sister, not me, not me. You love Xu Ran, take her back. She desperately kowtowed to Shin Yuxiu until blood seeped from her forehead. Spare me, spare me. Shin Yuxiu gently helped my sister up and smiled at me and Li Qingyan. Ran. Your sister has been very emotionally unstable lately, I'll take her home first. No matter how hard she struggled, my sister couldn't break free from Shin Yuxiu's grip. She was dragged into the car by him. I know that once sister is taken back by Shin Yuxiu this time, she will completely lose her freedom. Just as I was about to keep watching, I was already pulled into the car by Li Qingyan. After returning home, he finally asked me, what exactly is going on? What happened between your sister and Shin Yuxiu? Why did your sister say you're actually Shin Yuxiu's sister? I told Li Qingyan everything about my past life and admitted that I was reborn. Li Qingyan quickly accepted it, because he had always doubted how an 8-year-old like me could possess such exceptional medical skills. Now everything makes sense. So, in our past lives, you were by Shin Yuxiu's side, while my companion was your sister. I nodded. Li Qingyan came over and hugged me. In our past life, did you become just like your sister too? I cried in Li Chenjian's arms, pouring out all my vulnerability, grievances, and resentment. Shin Yuxiu is a monster. He forcibly removed my uterus when I was 18 because he didn't want me to have children. He refused to share me with anyone, kept me caged, and chained me. Ran. Li Chenjian murmured my name while holding me tightly. That was all in the past life. Now it's me who's by your side. He released me, cupped my face, and said, Ran, look at me, it's me. I'll protect you. I won't let anyone hurt you. Tears blurred my vision, but I could still clearly see Li Qingyan's face. All the negative emotions in my heart gradually dissipated. I took a deep breath. I'll protect myself too. Good. Li Qingyan held me tighter again. Big brother will give you whatever you want, as long as you can become strong enough to protect yourself. I'll do anything you ask. 13. With irrefutable evidence, even with the best lawyers, the billionaire's wife couldn't overturn the case. What awaited her was the death penalty, but it was clear that Li Chenjian no longer cared about the billionaire's wife now. He told me, Ran, I will avenge you. I understand what he meant. He would take action against Shin Yuxiu. I held his hand. Brother, don't act impulsively. Let's first see if Shin Yuxiu makes any moves, after being reborn. I never intended to seek revenge. I just want to live my life well, to become strong enough to protect myself from anyone's harm. Li Qingyan didn't bring up revenge again, but then I received a call from Shin Yuxiu. He asked to meet me. Naturally, I refused, but then my sister's heart-wrenching screams came through the phone. Ran, did you hear that? Shin Yuxiu's gloomy, eerie voice carried a hint of amusement. That's your sister. She killed you in your past life, and now in this life, she's fallen into your brother's hands. I'll avenge you. My hand loosened, and my phone almost fell. All the hairs on my body stood on end. Shin Yuxiu, you. Shin Yuxiu's laughter came through the phone, creeping into my ears like a chilling wind blowing up from hell. Little sister, I've been reborn too. After killing your sister, I was imprisoned for 10 years. The moment I got out, I came straight to find you. I told you before, even if we have to go to hell, I'll be with you. I abruptly hung up the phone. That demon has returned. He's come for me, but this time, I can't just sit back and do nothing. 14. I went to see Shin Yuxiu. He had my sister tied up in a villa in the suburbs, locked in a cage with chains. When my sister saw me, she broke down in tears, screaming with all her might, Save me, little sister, save me. Shin Yuxiu walked over and pulled me into his embrace, his voice brimming with longing. Ran, you came after all. I knew you wouldn't abandon your brother. Ran, I've missed you so much. For 10 years, I've thought of you every day, but I had to leave to find you. Did you miss me? I shoved him away violently, glaring at him with pure hatred. Shin Yuxiu, I hate you. Shin Yuxiu wasn't angered. Instead, he smiled. It was a twisted smile, one filled with excitement, bloodlust, and cruelty. Ran, you do love me. You just don't realize it yourself. I took a deep breath. Shin Yuxiu, do you love me? I love you, Ran. Of course I love you. Shin Yusho came over and hugged me again. Ran, I love you, I love you. I leaned close to his ear and said word by word, then how about you go die? Shin Yusho's body stiffened. The next moment, police officers rushed in. Hands up. Shin Yusho merely glanced at the police before his gaze returned to my face. He laughed again, but this time it carried a hint of desolation. Ran, I love you. He looked into my eyes while stepping back, repeating those 3 words, I love you, until he retreated into the cage, helped his sister up, and unfastened the collar around her neck. Just when everyone thought he was going to let his sister go, a knife suddenly appeared in his hand, its sharp blade sliding across her neck. They also left the choice to us sisters. Jean, sister collapsed to the ground. Shin Yusho also fell to the ground. The bullet struck Shin Yusho squarely between the eyebrows, leaving a streak of crimson. His eyes remained fixed on me, a smile playing at the corners of his lips. My legs gave way as if all strength had drained from my body, and I collapsed. Ran. Li Qingyan caught me, then roared furiously after confirming I was unharmed. Why didn't you tell me? Who told you to take such risks? Li ran. Are you trying to get yourself killed? I hugged him. Brother, it's all over. Everything is over. Li Qingyan was still shaken, but he still held me. It's over. After leaving the villa, I got into Li Qingyan's car. He took me to the police station to give my statement. Stepping out of the police station, it was just noon. The autumn sunlight was exceptionally bright. I rolled down the car window to let the cool autumn breeze in, then looked outside. Li Qingyan steered with one hand while freeing the other to hold mine, giving it a gentle squeeze. I turned my head to look at him, and we exchanged a knowing smile. The golden sunlight streamed in, illuminating both of our smiling faces. The end. Story 2. I pestered the poor campus heartthrob for 3 years. I was a complete spoiled rich girl. He was always lukewarm towards me, neither saying he liked me nor that he hated me. It wasn't until my family went bankrupt, when I had the nerve to ask him to return the watch I had given him. His seemingly well-behaved sister, who had always encouraged me to pursue love, pushed me away. Don't pester my future boyfriend if you don't have money. Okay, only then did I know that the sister he had been taking good care of and showing concern for wasn't his biological sister, but his foster sister. The campus heartthrob who had always given me a cold shoulder actually obeyed her every word. He had been playing along with me for a full 3 years because of her. After being reborn, I went back to the day when I forcefully pursued the campus heartthrob. I hugged the arm of the wealthy young master who was engaged to me and walked straight past without even glancing at him. In this life, I don't want to love him anymore. However, the campus heartthrob, who was originally beaten until he was covered in bruises, opened his eyes with great difficulty and tightly grasped my ankle with regret and pain. 1. I stood on the rooftop and took a puff of my cigarette. The major debts of the company had all been transferred to my name in the past 2 months or so. For a full 73 days and 8 hours, I hardly had a full night's sleep. All I could think about when I opened or closed my eyes was how to raise funds. My mother passed away due to a stroke. My father was so devastated that he started drinking heavily. My elder brother was completely down and suffered from severe depression. I took on all the burdens, but no miracle happened. I was really just a spoiled rich girl. When it came to this critical moment, I could only think of one solution. After finishing the cigarette, my hands were a bit shaky. I couldn't help but open the chat window with Pei Guyan. The last message in it was still the good night he sent me by rote 2 months ago. I spent 100,000 yuan to get his WeChat account and 300,000 yuan to have him send me good morning and good night messages every day. But this routine had already ended because I couldn't help but slap his sister, Ji Qing. 2 months ago, I stared at the chat window, typed, and sent, Pei Guyan. I lit another cigarette and told myself that after finishing this cigarette, I really shouldn't hesitate anymore. The first minute, Pei Guyan didn't reply. While waiting, I boredly flipped through my contact list. They were all fair-weather friends. They all avoided me like the plague after they learned that my family had gone bankrupt. The few true friends I had gradually drifted away from me in the past few years when I was desperately chasing Pei Guyan. I had no one to talk to anymore. The second minute, I didn't indulge Pei Guyan. I called him over and over again, using the most disgusting ways I could think of. Pei Guyan, baby Pei, sweetheart Pei, handsome guy who looks like a big sweet potato with a butt so tilted that it can hold up the pyramid. After being a spoiled rich girl for 23 years, The only thing I was good at was flirting with others. The third minute, Peigayan finally couldn't stand it anymore and sent, Shinyuju, stop being crazy, okay. I smiled and took a fierce puff of the cigarette. What's wrong? We've tried all kinds of positions in bed. Are you being a hypocrite, Mr. Campus Heartthrob? Are you afraid that your girlfriend will check up on you? Peigayan was silent for a few seconds. And the message he sent was cold and heartless, Shinyuju. Xiaoqing is my sister. You still haven't changed your habit of slandering others randomly with your young lady's temper. It's really disgusting, sister. 2 months ago, when I was so poor that I had no choice but to go to Peigayan and ask for the watch I had given him back, Jiqing blocked me and pushed me down. At that time, she didn't say that, she said, Shinyuju, you stupid rich second generation. Did you really think that my brother and I were from a reorganized family? We grew up together and like each other. You're just the first pot of gold on my brother's road to success. How many times in the past, when I couldn't figure out Peigayan's thoughts and was so tired that I wanted to give up, it was Jiqing who pretended to be well-behaved and encouraged me. Sister Yuju, my brother is just cold on the outside but warm on the inside. Just chase him boldly and be more generous. He will definitely fall for someone like you. But after I lost my money. She suddenly changed her attitude. It turned out that all of this was just their couple's role-playing. I was stupid, and I admit it. Money is the best shelter in the world. I was too rich before, and my parents and elder brother loved me too much, so I didn't strive for progress. I deserved to be deceived. It's just, the cigarette was almost finished. I didn't have the time to argue with Peigayan about his lies. Holding on to the last bit of hope, I asked, hey, Peigayan. Can you return that Rolex Submariner I gave you? He disliked that watch the most and never wore it. He said it made him look like an uneducated upstart. Peigayan hesitated. What trick are you playing now? Do you still want to deceive me into meeting you, Shinyuju? Ever since you bullied my sister, I don't want to see you again, I said. It's okay if we don't meet. You can send it to me through someone else. Peigayan didn't say anything for a long time. And there was only a short cigarette but left of my cigarette. I didn't have time anymore. I comforted myself that even if I got the watch back, it would just be a drop in the bucket. It didn't matter anymore. Peigayan, okay, tell me an address, and I'll send it to you by express delivery. I sighed. Forget it then. It's too late. Peigayan, Shinyuju, what on earth do you mean? I took the last puff of the cigarette forcefully. The cigarette but was burned so short that it almost burned my lips. I never thought that one day I would use this stingy way of smoking. I stood up and made my last request to Peigayan. Hey, Peigayan, say goodnight to me one more time. Peigayan said, why should I? I stared at those 3 words and unexpectedly found that my heart still ached. Sigh, loving him was really a painful thing. Fortunately, I wouldn't have to suffer from this pain anymore. I didn't reply. I stuffed my phone into my pocket and took a deep breath. Then, without hesitation, I jumped off the tall building. I knew that 5 minutes later, my father and elder brother would receive a timed text message. Daughter/sister is incompetent and can't revive the company. But don't worry, when a person dies, the debts are cleared. You can live well from now on. By the way, the little niece is so cute. Teach her to study hard and make a name for herself. Don't be like me. I closed my eyes. In the next life, I don't want to be a spoiled rich girl anymore. I don't want to hit anyone's wall of resistance anymore. Not even until my head bleeds. 2. After a severe bout of dizziness, I tried my best to open my heavy eyelids. Then, I was stunned. The surroundings were neither the white walls of a hospital ward nor the burly men from a debt collection company. There was only a bustling entertainment club filled with feasting and revelry, a world of luxury and debauchery. I slowly lowered my head and saw the out-of-season Chanel haute couture dress I was wearing, which was from 3 years ago, and I was filled with confusion. You're going a bit too far. I know you don't want to come to this blind date, but at least pretend a bit. Why are you even starting to play with your fingers while looking down? Is what I'm saying that boring? A man's somewhat lazy voice came from in front of me. I looked up. It turned out to be Su Mingluan, the eldest son of the Su family. 3 years ago, we went on a blind date. I was stunned. I had actually been reborn back to 3 years ago. Suddenly, there was a commotion outside the window. There were people scolding, and the sounds of punching and kicking. I remembered everything. In my previous life, I heard this commotion. Relying on my status as the young lady of the Shin family, I went to see what was happening. After that, I fell in love at first sight with Peigayan, who was being beaten up. I spent money to settle the matter with the guests who were beating him up. Unfortunately, my subordinates were too considerate and provided a one-stop service. Not only did they treat Pei Guyan's injuries, but they also cleaned him up, got him drunk, and sent him to my bed, unaware of the truth. I thought that Pei Guyan had offered himself to me out of gratitude, so I readily accepted without hesitation. Only later did I find out that he deeply resented me because he thought I had forced myself on him. In this life, I don't want to get involved in this ill-fated relationship again. Miss Shen, what a big commotion. Do you want to go and take a look? Su Mingluan leaned forward with great interest. I lowered my head to eat. No, let's just chat. Su Mingluan stared at me in surprise. Well, I'm truly honored, but for some reason, the commotion this time was even louder. Pei Guyan, dressed in a waiter's uniform, pushed the security guards aside and rushed into the VIP area as if he was running for his life. His nose was broken, and he was covered in blood. He seemed to be stunned and hit the corner of our table, making the glass cup hum. Damn it, you little bastard, you still dare to run, you broke my watch, and if you don't have the money to pay for it, you'll have to pay with your poor life. A drunken guest cursed as he walked in and was surrounded by the security guards. The scene was chaotic, but after Pei Guyan, who was fleeing for his life, leaned against the table under me, he remained motionless as if he had found a shelter. The injured him curled up at the corner of my table, and his gasps made his chest rise and fall. He was flustered and kept wiping the blood with his hands, trying his best to make his face a bit cleaner. Su Mingluan stood up, he glanced at me and, very dramatically, spread his hands towards Pei Guyan and gave me a gentlemanly bow. It's up to you. I was speechless. 3 years ago, I was indeed a well-known kind-hearted person in the circle, especially fond of rescuing handsome guys. Someone had made sarcastic remarks that I was a modern version of Shui Pan, the female character. At that time, I hadn't even read Dream of the Red Chamber and didn't know that I was being compared to the foolish Shui Pan. I gently shook my head at Su Mingluan, stood up, and held his arm tightly. Let's go, it's too noisy here. Su Mingluan looked at me in surprise. I didn't notice that Pei Guyan, who was curled up at the corner of my table, also froze in disbelief. I didn't even look at him. I pulled Su Mingluan and bypassed Pei Guyan. The moment I took my first step, someone suddenly grabbed my ankle tightly. Pei Guyan supported himself with one hand on the ground and held my ankle firmly with the other hand, covered in blood and almost fainting. He still refused to let go. His cold voice was stubborn, yet carried a hint of unspoken regret. Miss, don't you want to save me? 3. His voice was deep and still sounded so pleasant. In my previous life, I would have been overjoyed if he had said one more word to me, but now, even hearing a single word from Pei Guyan made me feel creeped out and in great pain. I stood there stiffly, seeing that I didn't say anything. Pei Guyan called out softly again, this time. His voice was even more stubborn and pitiful. Miss, I lifted my foot and tried to break free from him. He didn't expect my reaction. He tried his best to raise his head, picked up the hot towel he used to wipe his hands, and regardless of the pain, wiped his face vigorously. Wait, look at my face. In my previous life, it was because of this fleeting glance that I fell in love with him at first sight. From then on, I was almost entangled with him for 3 years. As if we were destined to be at odds with each other, I lowered my head, and my eyes lightly landed on Pei Guyan's face. I calmly moved my eyes away, looking at him as indifferently as I would look at an ordinary tree. There was no surprise like in my previous life, and I didn't exclaim in admiration, "You're so handsome. Do you want to fall in love with me?" Pei Guyan couldn't believe it. While he was in a daze, Su Mingluan grabbed his wrist and forced him to let go because of the pain. You scared her. Su Mingluan frowned and said. Pei Guyan finally came to his senses and glanced at him. His eyes suddenly turned cold. Su Mingluan, I was a bit surprised. How could Pei Guyan know Su Mingluan now? In my previous life, even after he was entangled with me, he always maintained an indifferent attitude and never showed any interest in my social circle, let alone remembered the blind date partner I casually mentioned. I lowered my head. There was already a mottled blood-stained handprint on my ankle where the black high-heeled shoe strap was tied. Pei Guyan really grabbed me hard. I frowned. Pei Guyan looked at me expressionlessly, his eyes dark and hiding some unknown desire. I said softly, "It's so dirty." This sentence was like a punch hitting Pei Guyan's face. The curve of his mouth froze instantly. He stared at me in a daze. What did you say? I didn't want to look at him. I bent down to pick up the towel to wipe it. Su Mingluan was very gentlemanly, considering that it was inconvenient for me to bend down and address. He squatted down halfway and wiped Pei Guyan's blood cleanly. I hugged Su Mingluan's arm and said in a low voice, "Let's go. In this life, I won't make the same mistake again. I will stay as far away from Pei Guyan as possible." 4. There was a troublesome guest at the club, and the waiters were in a rush. Many guests also chose to leave, for a while. The doorman in charge of parking the cars was extremely busy. While we were waiting for the car, after asking for my opinion, Su Mingluan lit a cigarette. The light of the fire illuminated his cynical eyebrows and eyes. I had looked at this face for more than 10 years. I thought I had seen enough of it and was tired of it, but unexpectedly, after such a long separation, when I started over, I found that he was actually no less good-looking than Pei Guyan in my previous life. Tonight was the last time we met. After tonight, I met Pei Guyan. I strongly refused my parents' idea of having me continue with the blind dates, Su Mingluan and I gradually drifted apart. In fact, it wasn't just because I fell in love with Pei Guyan, it was also because I was a bit jealous of Su Mingluan at that time. I was jealous of his intelligence. I was jealous that he was the heir apparent as the eldest son, while I was just a rich second generation who was born only to eat, drink, and have fun. I used to think that being an heir was a light and glorious, yet easy honor, but I didn't expect that when the responsibility really fell on my shoulders, it made me dizzy and miserable. Because of this, in this life, I have let go of a lot of my feelings towards Su Mingluan. I suddenly said, "Let me ask you something. Do you know what a limited liability company is?" Su Mingluan, who was smoking, was suddenly choked. He coughed and asked me in disbelief, "Shen Yuzhu, are you sick? Are you sure you want to ask me about business knowledge instead of limited edition luxury goods?" Me, "Tell me or not, it's up to you." Su Mingluan smiled and moved my hand aside, looking very casual. "Okay, since Miss Shen suddenly wants to study, Su, will definitely accompany you to the end." We were chatting when we were suddenly interrupted. "Shen Yuzhu, wow, you're Shen Yuzhu from the School of Business at University A. Right, we're from the same school. I'm good friends with your roommate. My name is Ji Qing." When I heard this voice, my eyelids suddenly twitched. When I turned my head, Ji Qing was supporting the injured Pei Guyan and eagerly stretched out her hand towards me. "This is my brother, Pei Guyan, the campus heartthrob of University A." Ha ha ha. I smoked indifferently, my face expressionless. Following my gaze, Pei Guyan saw his arm that was hooked by Ji Qing. He pursed his lips and gently pulled his hand away. Ji Qing's smile froze for a moment. She playfully patted Pei Guyan. "Brother, you can't be like this. You forget about your sister when you see a beautiful woman." I remember that in my previous life, she always liked to say things like this, saying that she wasn't as pretty as me and that she didn't look as much like a lady from a prestigious family as I did. I used to foolishly think that she was speaking well of me in front of Pei Guyan. Later, I realized that she just wanted to hear Pei Guyan's cold and disdainful reply, that I was just average looking and didn't look like a lady from a prestigious family. He thought I was just a superficial rich second generation. But strangely, this time, Pei Guyan didn't speak up to deny it. Everything fell into silence. Ji Qing had to get back to the point. She asked cautiously, "Classmate Yuzhu, you're so rich and beautiful, can you please help my brother? He accidentally broke a guest's watch, and it seems to cost around 100,000 yuan. We poor college students really don't have that kind of money. Can you, for the sake of being classmates, give us a hand?" Pei Guyan looked at me without saying a word. He, who was stubborn and aloof, didn't speak up to stop her. Instead, he stared at my face, falling into a strange trance. "Ji Qing, it doesn't matter if you don't want to lend us the money, then can you please say a few words to the manager and ask him not to fire my brother? We really need this job. Please, just say a word." I looked at them. It was really ridiculous. In my previous life, when Ji Qing and I had a falling out, she repeatedly said that they didn't need my help at all in the first place. It was me who was being persistent and pestering Pei Guyan, so I deserved to be let down. But in this life, why did she come to me on her own initiative when I hadn't even taken action? I looked at her indifferently. "I refuse." Ji Qing's smile disappeared. She was stunned and started to stammer out explanations. "Sister Yuzhu, aren't you the kindest person usually? I heard that you gave someone 10,000 yuan just because your roommate helped you with your homework, and that person who asked you to help their family member find a job. Can you do this small favor?" I smiled and interrupted her unceremoniously, softly uttering 3 words, "Why should I?" Before Ji Qing could react, Pei Guyan beside her changed his expression first. It seemed that the 3 words "why should I" hit his most painful and nightmarish sore spot. He turned pale, looking at me in disbelief. his body trembling slightly. Stop talking, he said softly. The car is here, Su Mingluan said at the same time. I stared at Pei Guyan in confusion and then got into Su Mingluan's car without hesitation. Su Mingluan sensed my strangeness. He glanced at me. Do you know him? I shook my head. Not really, Su Mingluan said. Since we grew up together, let me give you some advice. You and him are not from the same world. Don't mess with him too much. I looked at him. Su Mingluan propped his arm on the car window. And under his cynical expression was a cold and cruel objectivity. I said softly, thank you. Su Mingluan shook his head. I also have my own ulterior motives. His eyes suddenly fixed on me, and he repeated, Yuju, I also have my own ulterior motives. What were his ulterior motives? I said. Su Mingluan, you want to marry me, don't you? Su Mingluan smiled. Our conditions are very suitable, aren't they? I looked at him quietly. In my previous life, when my family went bankrupt, Su Mingluan was one of the few people who took the initiative to help. However, at that time, the situation was already too difficult to reverse, and it was too late. It seemed that God specifically made me return to this point in time to make up for some regrets. I nodded. Okay. Su Mingluan was a bit surprised. Then how about having the engagement banquet in 7 days? I said. So soon? Su Mingluan nodded and smiled. Yes, I'm in a hurry. I'm afraid you'll be snatched away by some inexplicable person. 5. I told my parents that I had a favorable impression of the person I went on a blind date with, and they were very happy. They enthusiastically started making arrangements for the engagement banquet. My mother let out a sigh of relief and muttered to herself, now I can rest assured. I looked at her quietly and suddenly understood the details that I had overlooked in my previous life. Perhaps the elders had already vaguely anticipated the disaster that would happen 3 years later. Even my mother might have already known that she was ill, so she was so eager to see me get married. She was afraid that after she died, no one would be able to take care of me. But for me, the significance of the arranged marriage was not just that. I didn't have that much confidence in my own abilities. I didn't know if, after studying hard for 3 years, I could instantly become an elite who could turn the situation around. Therefore, I needed a smart partner. A partner who was bound to me by a legal and valid contract. Having been reborn, Pei Guyan was no longer the center of my world. I was concerned about my mother's illness and started supervising her to have regular checkups and pay attention to her diet. I also took the initiative to suggest going to the company for training. My father looked at me with pride, and my mother exclaimed happily, Baby has really grown up and is now caring about her mother. My brother raised his eyebrows and, pretending to be the head of the family, said seriously, if you want to get some experience, you can't cry. Internships are very hard, and you have to get up early every day. But less than a minute later, he couldn't keep up the act. It doesn't matter if you can't get up. Brother will get you an empty office. You can decorate it however you like. Okay. I looked at them, and my eyes involuntarily turned red. They really loved me and didn't want me to encounter anything that required me to work hard and persevere in my life. They wanted me to be a carefree princess for the rest of my life. They were willing to bear all the hardships and difficulties for me. However, after going through my previous life, I realized that this was wrong. No one could bear everything for a lifetime. I had to become independent. They protected me, and I also needed to be smarter to protect them. I picked up the textbooks that I had neglected for a long time and took the initiative to move into the university dormitory. However, this time, when I was in professional courses class, my classmates looked at me with some strange expressions. I turned my head and saw Pei Guyan with bruises on his face. He took the initiative to sit next to me. His voice was bitter. Shin Yuju, long time no see. 6. I stared at him as if he were a stranger. Is there something wrong, classmate? Pei Guyan was stung by my distant gaze. His eyelids fluttered slightly, and his expression remained cold. Well, do you need someone to help you with your studies? I'm really good at economics, he said clumsily. I took a deep breath to control myself. Classmate, aren't you from the Department of Biology? Pei Guyan's eyes suddenly lit up. You still remember? I frowned and said nothing, burying myself in reading the book. Pei Guyan stared at me, his voice getting softer. Although I'm not from the School of Business, I can learn. His Adam's apple bobbed. He had an expressionless face, but he stuttered so much that the tips of his ears turned red. I can also learn other things. I looked at him in disbelief. What things? Pei Guyan lowered his eyes, his gaze complicated. All the things you like. I was stunned when I heard this. I really didn't have that much confidence to think that just because of my looks, Pei Guyan 3 years ago would give up his pride and humbly pursue me, so. There was only one possibility. I turned cold and forced myself to control my anger, doing my best to stay calm, but Pei Guyan still wouldn't let me go. He said softly, "You know, right?" I pretended not to hear him. The teacher had already entered the classroom, and the first day of my brand new life was about to begin, but Pei Guyan persisted. He whispered, "Yuju, I owe you a good night." These words made me freeze instantly. In a trance. I seemed to be back on that tall building where the wind was strong and cold. I looked into the distance in despair, lit my last match, and the reply I got was an even colder and more desolate hell. I finally had to admit that Pei Guyan, the one who remembered all my embarrassing and humble moments of pursuing love, he had also been reborn. My tongue was burning. I gritted my teeth and said, "What on earth do you want?" Pei Guyan said, "Yuju, I didn't know that your family went bankrupt at that time. I regret treating you like that. I also forgive you for your hostility towards my sister. Let's start over. Let's be together again like in the previous life." Okay, 7. The teacher had already started the class. I was forced to shut up. I squeezed my pen tightly. The presence of Pei Guyan beside me was really unbearable. Finally, those 90 minutes of torment passed, and I got up and left without hesitation. Pei Guyan followed closely behind me. When we reached the stairwell, he grabbed my hand forcefully. "Yuju." I couldn't stand it anymore and slapped him hard. "Get lost." Pei Guyan's head swayed, but he didn't let go. I was furious and slapped him twice more. "Get lost. Why do you think you can forgive me?" The students passing by had heard the commotion and were secretly stopping to watch. I felt ashamed. Why? Why was my first day of trying not to be a spoiled rich girl ruined by him again? Pei Guyan's face, which already had bruises, now had slap marks and started to swell. But what's hateful is, he was still good-looking, with red eyes. He looked like a vulnerable male model. Pei Guyan pursed his lips tightly. He held me firmly with both hands and finally couldn't hold back either. The pretense of trying his best to stay calm was completely torn apart. He stared at me. "Why do I think I can forgive you? You tell me why. You kept saying that you loved me, but after being reborn, you immediately latched onto another man." I laughed out of anger. Pei Guyan showed his jealousy. "You don't even look at me anymore. Now that you have a new lover, you don't even glance at me. What's going on? After playing with me for 3 years in the previous life, are you bored and looking for something new?" I was in disbelief. "How dare you slander me, Pei Guyan? I fawned over you for 3 years while you kept giving me the cold shoulder. Who was playing with whom exactly?" Pei Guyan couldn't stand it anymore. "It was you. You got me drunk. You seduced me. Your love was incredibly cheap. You constantly coaxed me, said those shameless words, and tortured me. You humiliated me with money. The most hateful thing is. He was so angry that he couldn't speak. The corners of his eyes were red and swollen. He stared at me fiercely, as if he wanted to bite a piece of my flesh. Pei Guyan clenched his teeth with all his might to calm his breathing. But he still couldn't help letting out a furious growl. "The most hateful thing is, why did you keep me in the dark? Why did you ask me to send you a good night message before you jumped off the building? Yuju, it was 8 o'clock in the morning. How could I not think that you were playing with me? That's just how you are. You've always been like this. You wouldn't even let me go when you died. You had to drag me to hell with you and make me suffer." I sneered. "Stop pretending. What suffering are you talking about? Although I, Yuju, am a spoiled rich girl, I've never done anything heartless like forcing others. Didn't I ask you? I asked you countless times if you liked me. If you didn't like me, you could have said so. If you hated me so much, you could have said it out loud. What did I seduce you with? What did I coax you with? It was clearly you who neither took the initiative nor refused. You and your foster sister colluded to treat me like an ATM machine and deceive me. Damn it." Pei Guyan flinched as if he had been pricked by a needle. He wanted to refute, but his excessive pride still made it difficult for him to confess his true feelings. He stalemated, enunciating each word with effort. "It's not like what you think." I looked at him coldly. "When my mother was in the hospital and we were in urgent need of money, I was so anxious that I called you but couldn't reach you. When I knocked on the door, I found that the apartment I bought for you had become the love nest for you and Ji Qing. I just wanted to get back a watch to pawn for money." Ji Qing looked at me coldly and mocked me, then pushed me away. I was so angry that I slapped her. "That slap happened to be seen by you, and you still think I have hostility towards her until now." Pei Guyan's expression suddenly changed. His face turned as white as paper. "What did you say?" I said, "So Was it all my misunderstanding? Isn't my Rolex Submariner with you? Didn't Ji Qing become the mistress of that apartment? Didn't you look at me coldly? Didn't you always take Ji Qing's side whenever something happened? Every single thing. How could I have wronged you so much? Pei Guyan, in the end, all you wanted was to have it both ways and earn money without sacrificing your dignity. You said I humiliated you with money. So why the hell did you accept it? I suddenly pushed away the stunned him. He wasn't prepared and was pushed against the wall by me. I walked away in big strides, but I hadn't gone far when he caught up with me. Pei Guyan said in a low voice, "Why wouldn't she give you the watch? Xiaoqing wouldn't do such a thing. Is there some misunderstanding?" "Misunderstanding your ass." I couldn't stand it anymore and kicked him. Pei Guyan let out a whimper and covered his stomach. But he still gritted his teeth and held on to me. "Xiaozhu. Please, wait a moment." It was rare for the arrogant him to show such a flustered and vulnerable look, but I didn't care anymore. "Yuzhu." I turned around when I heard the voice. Su Mingluan was holding the car key on his index finger and walking towards me. The savior I had messaged for during class arrived in time. I said to him, "Take me away." Su Mingluan immediately blocked Pei Guyan, who still wanted to pester me. He took a closer look at Pei Guyan and, not surprised, said, "Why is it you again? You can't keep clinging to the same person when trying to climb up the social ladder. She's my fiancée now." Pei Guyan, who had been persistent and even glared at Su Mingluan with caution, suddenly changed his expression. He looked at me in disbelief. "He's lying." I looked at him as if I were looking at those absurd years of mine. "Pei Guyan, I've really given up on you. Stop pestering me." Pei Guyan was devastated. This was the first time in all these years that I had seen him so emotionally broken. He looked at me with red eyes, his lips opening and closing. In the end, he only said 3 words, "Impossible." "What's impossible about that? Does he, Pei Guyan, really think he's an incredibly wonderful person in the world and that I can't live without him?" Leaning against the car window, I sank deep into the memories of the past. In my previous life, at our first meeting, I left my blind date behind, wiped the blood off his face for him, and took off the watch on my wrist to pay off his debt. At our second meeting, he lay on the hotel bed with a blank look in his eyes, staring at me with a red face and not moving at all. That night, Pei Guyan wasn't actually as passive and helpless as he claimed. If someone is truly drunk, they can't even get up. So how could he have done those things by himself? Later, he was sometimes cold and sometimes warm towards me. He said he had to work part-time and his studies were heavy, but even the occasional dates he promised would always be cancelled because of his sister Ji Qing's minor illnesses. Only then did I vaguely realize that in Pei Guyan's heart, his sister's status was much higher than mine. Much, much higher, far higher. At that time, I was someone who always got what I wanted and had never suffered. Encouraged by Ji Qing and deceived by Pei Guyan's ambiguous attitude, I always thought that if I tried hard enough and took a gamble, I would definitely make him fall in love with me too. An innocent rich girl who put all her thoughts into love. Thinking about it now, I was really naive back then. Every time I think of Pei Guyan, the stabbing pain in my chest has become numb and I feel nothing. I feel as if I'm peeking into someone else's life through a layer of fog. I will never like Pei Guyan again. Su Mingluan suddenly said, "If there's anything that makes you unhappy, you can tell me." I looked up. "What?" He looked at me calmly, as if he had guessed something. Su Mingluan smiled and explained, "Although our marriage is a business arrangement, I think I should still fulfill the basic responsibilities of a fiancé." He added, "However, speaking of which, I was really a bit surprised when you agreed to marry me. Yuzhu, you don't seem like someone who would follow the rules." I said, "Then what do I seem like?" Su Mingluan, "In the past, you were a bit gullible and kind-hearted, but you were also very passionate. You would definitely do whatever you wanted to do. I thought that one day you would have a big fight with your family and then go in search of your own love." I fell silent, thinking of my previous life when I was bruised and battered. I couldn't help but let out a silent bitter laugh. If I hadn't left that blind date early in my previous life and had instead listened to more of Su Mingluan's wise words, maybe I wouldn't have ended up in that situation. "Su Mingluan, I know you don't have much strong affection for me." What about you?" Su Mingluan shrugged. "We grew up together. Although we're of similar age, I always think of you as a silly little sister. However, I like you very much, but for someone like me, liking someone may not take up the majority of my life." Su Mingluan pointed out, "Love is just a social relationship, a fragile chain that, in most cases, needs to rely on money, honor, and emotional value to exist. and sometimes, even when all those conditions don't disappear, it will sadly fade away silently over time, but interests are solid and eternal. It sounds like you're very pessimistic about love. Then why do you still want to marry me? Su Mingluan smiled. It's not pessimism, but objectivity. The reason why I want to marry you is basically the same as the reason why you're willing to marry me. We're both wealthy children who grew up under the protection of our families. We've spent a lot of money and enjoyed many privileges that ordinary people can't have even after a lifetime of hard work. So it's time for us to give something back to our families. At this point, talking about pursuing love or freedom is just the willful behavior of a child. Then I wish us a pleasant cooperation, Su Mingluan gently added, but I also want to make one thing clear. Although I'm a pure rationalist, I'm not a heartless capitalist either. There's a little bit of humanity in my heart, and there's a small part of that humanity that belongs to love, and it's called Xinyuzhu. Although that part isn't big, I hope Miss Shen, who is used to seeing good things, will accept it. Hearing his extremely candid words, I couldn't help but laugh. 9. On the day of my engagement to Su Mingluan, Pei Guyan also came. He stared fixedly at the engagement flower arrangements and posters outside the hotel until his eyes turned red. None of this is real. She clearly likes me. He was extremely unwilling and pushed the flower baskets away insanely. Before he could fully vent his emotions, he was forcefully pressed to the ground by the security guards. Ji Qing's face turned pale and then red. She didn't have the memories of the previous life and didn't understand why all of a sudden, the man who had been filled with her in his heart and eyes would suddenly see her true colors and be so cold towards her. She also didn't understand why Pei Guyan would suddenly pester another woman as if he had gone crazy. She staggered over to help him up, but Pei Guyan pushed her away. Ji Qing finally couldn't hold back. Brother, why are you pestering a woman who doesn't like you? This is really unseemly. Pei Guyan finally looked up at her. You also know that this kind of thing is embarrassing. Then why did you lie to her behind my back, make her lose all face by chasing after me, just to make fun of her? Ji Qing was stunned. Who are you talking about? Pei Guyan's chest heaved violently. He stared at her, at this person who hadn't committed any mistakes yet, and it was like punching into cotton. He felt a sense of powerless irritability. This was a curse. Heaven had made him go back to the starting point of the story, but didn't give him any chance to atone for his mistakes. He could only helplessly watch those good opportunities slip through his fingers and could only hate the person who hadn't made any mistakes yet. Pei Guyan felt as if he had fallen into a stagnant lake. He weakly waved his hand at Ji Qing. Don't call me brother anymore. We're just neighbors who played together when we were children. Ji Qing, I don't want to see you again in the future. He turned around and looked at the cold-faced security guards surrounding him. Each of them had a look of vigilance and contempt, as if they thought he was some kind of person who hated the rich and deliberately came to cause trouble. Pei Guyan then realized that if I didn't love him, he couldn't enter my world at all. In the previous life, his indifference, his arrogance, and even his pretended ambiguity were all just the power I gave him because I liked him. He couldn't stand it anymore. All his previous indifference disappeared, and filled with regret, he knelt on the ground and growled, Xinyuzhu, come out, Xinyuzhu. When I appeared in front of him wearing the engagement dress, he suddenly couldn't say anything. He looked at me gently and said with great difficulty, Xinyuzhu, what if I said that I actually fell in love with you before I even realized it? I couldn't help but open the chat window with Pei Guyan. The last message in it was still the good night he sent me by rote 2 months ago. This sentence was like cutting with a knife and removing the bones. It was as if his last backbone was being pulled out bloodily. He had no other way left. I lowered my head and said softly, Pei Guyan, you think your love is precious, but I don't need it anymore. I said distantly, please leave. If you dare to appear in front of me again, I'll ask the security guards to escort you out. Pei Guyan's pupils shrank. He stared blankly at my departing figure, then buried his head deeply and let out a very faint sob. 10. I walked back to the banquet hall. Su Mingluan was chatting happily with my brother. When he saw me, he handed me a glass of champagne. Leaning down, he whispered with a hint of faint, unnoticeable jealousy, there really are people trying to snatch you away. Fortunately, I got engaged early. I smiled and shook my head. He asked softly, who was that person? I replied calmly, just someone I don't know well. The grudges of the previous life are now the dust of this life. From then on, my brand new life was just beginning. Story 2. When I woke up, I was told that I had been in a vegetative state for 5 years. At the time of my car accident, Juan Zekin was at his lowest and loved me the most. During my deep sleep, I became his eternal unrequited love. Now that I've awakened, Juan Zekin has achieved great success. It seems I'm now somewhat superfluous. I looked towards Juan Zekin at the foot of the bed, his eyes red as he murmured, "Azzy." Upon hearing the news of my awakening, he had cut short a board meeting and rushed to the hospital. Then I turned to the secretary at the door, forcing a smile, her lips pale from biting them. "Azzy, do you remember me?" Juan Zekin tentatively reached out his hand as if I were a fragile object. I nodded and pointed towards the door. "That girl at the door looks a lot like me. Is she my long-lost sister?" Juan Zekin's hand stiffened instantly. However, the girl at the door stepped forward, managing a smile. "Mrs. Juan, hello, my name is Wen Xiaowen. I am Mr. Juan's secretary." By the end, when Xiaowen could no longer hold back her tears, covering her mouth as she quickly ran out of the room. "Xiaowen." Juan Zekin instinctively called out before starting to follow her, then remembered I was still there. "It's okay." I nearly had the words "generous" written across my face. "You must have important work matters to discuss. Go after her." Juan Zekin stared at me, his dark eyes swirling with complexity, but he eventually chased after her. Watching his retreating figure, my heart gradually cooled. I reached out and grabbed the little boy playing games at the bedside. "And you're in trouble. Are you the future protagonist who forces the heroine to undergo kidney removal and corneal donations?" My expression was fierce. "Did your father raise you according to the criminal law?" The boy, as beautiful as a porcelain doll, pushed me away. "Old lady, I command you to let go." I paused, then scoffed, pulling out the 4 and getting out of bed, ready to arm myself. The hunt began. I had been asleep for 5 years and had only one dream. In the dream, it was like reading a novel. And my son Wan Yi was the novel's ruthless, tyrannical male lead. Due to his mother's early death and his father's favoritism towards his stepmother, Wan Yi grew up lacking love and became warped, killing the heroine in the name of love, achieving a realistic version of chasing his wife to the crematorium. I cursed for 5 years in my dream, perhaps because my curses were too filthy. I, who was supposed to die in my sleep according to the plot, suddenly woke up, comparing timelines. I had 1 year left before the plot's appointed death. I had a feeling I couldn't escape the fate set by the novel, that I would still meet my end. I sighed deeply. All right then, I'll use this year to try and correct Wan Yi, as a gift to the future heroine from her mother-in-law. So when Juan Zekin rushed back to the room, he saw me with one hand on my hip and the other holding a shoe, while Wan Yi was in the corner, sobbing, his little behind covered in shoe prints. Juan Zekin froze in the doorway for 2 seconds, seeing his father. Wan Yi tried to hold back his tears, stubbornly turning his little face away, but the hope in his eyes was unmistakable. He was hoping his father would rescue him from this crazy woman, but his hopes were dashed. Juan Zekin didn't even glance at Wan Yi, walking straight over to scoop me up. Barefoot, Juan Zekin carried me back to bed, his eyes full of concern. "Azzy, you've just woken up, your body is still weak. Just call the nurse if you need anything." In the corner, Wan Yi's dark eyes dimmed further, his little fists clenched at his sides. "Tsk." I pushed Juan Zekin away, jumped off the bed, and scooped Wan Yi into my arms. "Is this how you've treated my son these 5 years? How can you be as indifferent as air?" As I spoke, my anger grew. "Do you still have the nerve to feign affection in front of me? You enjoy the process of having children but refuse to take on the responsibility." Juan Zekin was stunned, unaccustomed to seeing the fragile item in his mind suddenly transform into a sharp weapon attacking him. Mrs. Juan, please don't say that." At that moment, when Xiaowen, with tears streaking her face, rushed in. "Mr. Juan has been working tirelessly for you and young Master Juan. That's why he sometimes neglects the young master, but Mr. Juan often drinks until he gets gastric bleeding and works overtime until late at night. I've seen all this with my own eyes." She took a deep breath, as if gathering courage. "Madam, what I am about to say might offend you, but I still have to say that for the past 5 years, it has been Mr. Juan struggling alone, while you've just been lying here comfortably. You still misunderstand Mr. Juan, and it truly disheartens people." I raised an eyebrow. What a fine example of a man's flower of interpretation. Juan Zekin looked at Wen Xiaowen with surprise and emotion in his eyes, as if for the first time seeing through her skin, similar to mine, to the unique heart within. As for me just lying here comfortably, I laughed. "Miss Wen, guess why I was in a car accident and became comatose?" Guess whose life I risked mine to save? Wan Zeichen's face turned pale. His eyes filled with guilt, but when Xiaowen was not yet defeated, she argued, but even so, that was 5 years ago, even if you saved Mr. Wan, you can't keep morally blackmailing him like this. How am I morally blackmailing him? I was also tired. You speak without thinking and lack logic. It's simply a waste of my life. Nurse, get her out. She's polluting the air around me. Ozzy, how can you? Wan Zaichen frowned, not understanding how his gentle and unassuming beloved had turned into such a shrew. And I treated everyone the same. Enough talk, you can leave too. Wan Zaichen eventually left, though he didn't show anger. His eyes were full of disappointment. I didn't care much, and lifted Wan Yi onto the bed, rubbing his head. Son, what game were you playing just now? My mix of sternness and sweetness left him extremely uncomfortable. Seizing the opportunity, Wan Yi jumped out of my arms and picked up his game console, War of Sanctum. It can be played on the computer too. I responded with an "Oh, is it fun?" Wan Ye's ears turned red as he coolly judged. Just a way to pass the time. That sounded like something a typical CEO from a novel would say, but you're only 7 years old, starting to pass time now. Don't you think it's a bit too early? Thinking this, I pressed the call button, asking the nurse to bring 2 high-performance computers. What are you doing? Wan Yi asked warily, like a little black cat with its fur on end. Just passing time with you. I shrugged. Your mom still needs to stay in the hospital for observation. We can't just sit and stare at each other. The nurse brought the computers and the main units, but there weren't enough sockets. Just unplug my oxygen machine. I casually waved. No, Wan Yi instinctively protested. I felt reassured. The kid wasn't completely heartless after all. Then I got out of bed and unplugged my own oxygen machine myself. Wan Yi, don't ask. It's just the rebellious phase of an old mother. Once the game was installed, Wan Yi logged in to continue his mission, while I started creating an account under the guidance for newbies. This massive online game called War of Sanctum had 3 major races: humans, demons, and spirits. Humans could ascend to immortals or fall to demons, and within the demon and spirit races, there were over 100 professions to choose from. I was dazzled by the choices and consulted. Son, what race are you? That's not called a race. Wan Yi, focused on his screen, looked unexpectedly cool even though he was only a 7-year-old. He said, I'm a demon. My profession is war chariot. You're a car. I was surprised. Wan Yi rolled his eyes in annoyance. Not an actual car, but like the chariot in chess. Wow, that's so cool, while praising him. I gave him a light knock on the head and said, don't roll your eyes when talking to someone, it's rude. What are you doing? Wan Yi covered his head and turned away, his hand leaving the keyboard, and the battle tank he was controlling was immediately killed by a monster. Wan Yi pursed his lips, clearly angry but not daring to speak out. Sorry, I won't knock on you again when you're in battle. I immediately apologized, then added, I'll save it all up and settle after you're done fighting. Perhaps never having had someone care so much about his feelings. Wan Yi was stunned for a while, then turned his head awkwardly and said, it's okay. In the end, I chose to play as a plain-looking human and decided to follow the path of cultivating and healing. Just as I had completed a quest in the newbie village and was about to hand over the hunted goods to the village chief, I was ambushed by a player nicknamed Newbie Butcher who was at level 7, game over. Seeing the screen covered in blood red, I couldn't help but scream. What happened? Wan Yi jumped at my shout. On the screen, the Newbie Butcher picked up the loot dropped from my character's corpse and even did a dance move to mock me. I furiously pressed the respawn key. I got ambushed in the newbie village, and he's dancing next to my corpse. Wan Yi didn't say a word after hearing this. When I recovered from the respawn, I saw a huge monster furiously chasing the Newbie Butcher, landing critical hits and camping at the respawn point. The Newbie Butcher was beaten down to level 1, and that 59-level demon called Invisible Man finally left his corpse and came over to me, a message appearing above his huge demonic horns. Invisible Man, go dance. At first, I didn't understand until I saw the Invisible Man dancing next to the Newbie Butcher's corpse to mock him. I was dumbfounded and slowly turned my head to look at Wan Yi, who had a stern face, then slowly raised a thumbs up. Awesome, no wonder you're the main character. I suddenly understood why the female lead endured so much suffering and still wouldn't leave Wan Yi. Some people really are born with a charm. Being terrible at the game, Wan Yi simply took me on quests, and as I kept praising him with, son, you're so cool, son, you're so handsome, he gradually lost himself. Unable to suppress a small smile, With Ruanye's battle tank paving the way, I easily leveled up to 9, focusing on refining pills while he took care of the monsters, and thus my skill in alchemy reached level 4, but feeling it was too slow, I waved my hand and spent a chunk of money, kitting both me and Ruanye's game characters in top-tier gear from head to toe. Funny, I might be unlucky and unfortunate, but I've never been short of money. Ruanye's startup capital all came from my dowry. And his connections also stemmed from my family. What you give, you get back. And the reason I haven't divorced Ruanye immediately is to leave the undivided family assets entirely to Ruanye, so whether that secretary named Wen Xiaowen is truly love-struck or harbors the ambition of picking up victory cheaply, she's made the wrong move. Just as I was momentarily distracted, my screen was covered in blood red again. I had been killed, except for the premium gear. The pills I had painstakingly refined all day were picked up by those 3 demons. Old lady, what are you daydreaming about? Ruanye was helping me with a quest when he turned around and found me killed, his tone becoming sharp. Firstly, I'm your mother, not an old lady, and if you don't want to call me mom, you can call me sister or Guzi. Respect is the basis of communication, I calmly responded. Secondly, you owe me a knock on the head. Ruanye helped me seek revenge, and those 3 demons, not expecting me to have such a strong bodyguard, were no match for Ruanye. They started pleading in private messages to return my pills, but Ruanye ignored their pleas, his moves still fast and fierce, mercilessly slaughtering them. I noticed Ruanye particularly liked using a finishing move called Bloodthirsty Demon Claw, which tossed opponents into the air and tore them apart, the blood and flesh bursting like fireworks. Creating a gruesomely impactful scene, I turned to look at Ruanye, observing his straight mouth corners and his clear, firm gaze. His actions were swift, devoid of any mercy or hesitation. This child was far too composed, or rather, he was incapable of empathy. I didn't stop him immediately. Instead, I just watched Ruanye continue until he was satisfied. Perhaps my gaze was too intense because this time Ruanye didn't target those 3 individuals again. And after those 3 demon clan members resurrected, they threw out a threat. Bitch, wait for me to bring my guild to gang up on you. Before teleporting away, still unfamiliar with the game, I asked Ruanye, what is a guild? Ruanye's expression darkened as he explained, it's like a small group, you can join a guild after reaching level 10. Those people just now were from the Holy Fighters Guild, a recently established guild, but its leader is very powerful. Which is why it's thriving rapidly, so, we've landed ourselves in big trouble. Huh, I realized. Do you belong to any guild then, son? No, Ruanye scoffed, those mediocrities aren't worth it. It was somewhat incongruent to hear such words from a grade schooler, but then again, considering he is the future protagonist who could commit atrocities without legal consequences, it all made sense. Thinking I was silent from fear, Ruanye awkwardly added, don't worry. Guild leaders are usually very busy and don't have time to pursue personal vendettas, unless that guild leader had encountered something displeasing today and was looking for a way to vent. I stared at the guild leader named Qing Zeliang Chen, a cultivator of the human race, and his companion, a white fox demon named Warm Smile, falling into a brief contemplation. That's clearly Ruanze Chen and Wen Xiaowen. What a small world, just finished a confrontation in reality and now we're clashing online. Qing Zeliang Chen, was it you who ganged up on our holy fighters? I was drinking water when I thought of Ruanze Chen saying such a middle school-like line with his face, and I couldn't help but spit the water out. Warm Smile, you went too far. A level 59 bullying some level 13s, Ruanye indifferently typed on the keyboard, invisible man. Oh, so, I wiped the water from my lips, glancing sideways at Ruanye. He seemed yet to realize that this divine couple was indeed his own father and his future stepmother. I thought about it and decided not to expose them. Instead, I just took another sip, the glass hitting my teeth with a clear and sobering clink. 5 years ago was when Ruanze Chen loved me most, and I loved him most in return. Back then, I was utterly infatuated with him, his looks, his talents, his soul, and his devout yet fervent love for me. So much so that when an out-of-control car came hurtling towards us, my first instinct was to push him away. I pushed him away, and then I fell into a coma, in a coma from which I couldn't wake. I helplessly watched him entangle with a so-called substitute and eventually become a couple. Did I love him? Yes, I loved. Did I hate him? Yes, I hated. But all that love and hate, 5 years was enough to erode them away. Now, my heart is calm, unusually calm. Calm like a lake that freezes over on a winter night. undisturbed by any storm above, only Wanyi. He is the little fish in my lake. I don't regret bringing him into this world, and I want to accompany him as far as I can in this limited life. Feeling unnerved under my gaze, Wanyi frowned, glancing at me then quickly looking away. Grandma, don't keep staring at me. If they attack, you run, hear me? I just nodded. With Wanzhen being a demigod at level 74 and even when Xiao Wen's fox demon at level 36, I didn't think I could escape. Sure enough, as soon as the fight began, Wanzhen and Wen Xiaowen coordinated perfectly. Wanzhen aimed directly at Wanyi, while Wen Xiaowen cut off my escape route. However, Wanyi and I were more in sync. Wanyi forcefully endured a hit from Wanzhen, and ignoring Wen Xiaowen's attack, I quickly threw a healing pill to Wanyi. At the same time, Wanyi dodged and executed a combination of 3 moves, instantly killing Wen Xiaowen. Suddenly, the situation shifted to 2 against 1. Wanzhen was clearly taken aback for a moment, then with a move, he traded his injured self for me in a barely face-saving 1-for-1 exchange. As I transformed into a corpse in front of Wanyi, he remained unmoved and simply focused on healing himself. His calm composure was evident through the screen, his dark eyes clear and piercing. Then the real battle began. Wanzhen, at level 74, should have easily overpowered Wanyi at level 59, however, Wanyi maximized the advantages of the demon race, fighting in an unconventional and cunning manner. Despite being severely injured, he managed to hold his own against Wanzhen for half an hour, while lying dead. I simply had the caretaker bring some snacks and munched on sunflower seeds while exclaiming at the excitement of the duel. Naturally, with the level difference between them, no miracle occurred in the end. Wanyi was killed by Wanzhen. The massive corpse of the demon race lay like a dark mountain in front of the celestial-like human race. Its silent, intimidating presence felt even through the screen. After watching this intense father-son duel, I didn't forget to interview Wanyi about his post-battle thoughts. Son, what do you think about that person named Qingzhe Chen? Wanyi withdrew his hands from the keyboard, his face expressionless. Mediocre. Perfect. Pleased with Wanya's filial piety, I handed him a handful of sunflower seeds. And what about your mom? Terribly weak, he mumbled. Wanyi tried to dodge my feeding, but I still managed to stuff his mouth with seeds, silencing his filial remarks. Even before Wanzhen had come to seek retribution, many onlookers had gathered. Now that Wanzhen had killed Wanyi, members of the Holy Battle Army cheered, praising the chairman's might. Previously, those 3 demons were even more vociferous, demanding that Wanzhen fight me and Wanyi. However, Wanzhen didn't act as expected. He waited for Wanyi to resurrect and then extended an olive branch. Qingzhe Chen, you have some skills, why not join our Holy Battle Army? I'll overlook the past incident where you attacked my men, and I can help you fully utilize your talents in our army. I raised an eyebrow at Wanzhen's magnanimity and vision. No wonder he rose from Little Wan to Chairman Wan in just 5 years, while Wanyi, cheeks bulging with seeds, didn't even think before typing his response. Invisible man, no. This blunt refusal instantly angered the crowd. Members of the Holy Battle Army cursed Wanyi for his ignorance and ingratitude, unable to believe he dared refuse their invitation after being defeated by their chairman. As tensions seemed to rise again, it was time for Wen Xiaowen to step in. She approached my game character, Wen Xiao. Sister, I see you might be new here. Would you like to join our Holy Battle Army? If you're into healing, our guild offers free resources and materials. Cute smile. System, player Wen Xiao invites you to join the guild Holy Battle Army. Do you accept? As this invitation popped up on the screen, my hands full of sunflower seeds, I hesitated to let go but then managed to click the mouse with my pinky. Click, agree. System, player Ziyu has joined the guild Holy Battle Army. Wanyi swallowed his seeds, frowning at me. If it was a mistake, you can apply to leave the guild. I didn't make a mistake. I flicked another handful of seeds towards him, clapping my hands clean. It's tough to gather materials, and since joining gets them for free, why not join? Besides, joining also meant first-hand updates on the thrilling, dominant CEO and his delicate secretary's untold stories. I kept this last comment to myself, my lips curled in a mocking smile. Upon joining, I noticed a new golden tag above Wen Xiaowen's head, Chairman's wife. Looking at the chairman tag over Wanzhen's head, I felt like something green should fittingly appear above mine too. Wen Xiaowen, twisting her enchanting fox demon figure, made a friendly gesture towards me. Wen Xiao, Chairman's wife, welcome to our big family. Winking face, Her ambitions couldn't be clearer. I typed a response, ZU, 6. Wan Yi, munching seeds like a little hamster, suddenly choked, finally understanding why I chose the name ZU, because ZU is always right. Since he doesn't want to join the holy warriors, just let it be. There's no need to beg him so meekly. Oh, can't bear to let him go. Confucius says, may I ask, are you two a couple in real life as well? As I asked this, someone from the holy warriors quickly responded, come on, no. Our guild leader and his wife are first-time online daters. Just like elementary school kids falling in love. Oh my, it's too sweet every day. Know it all. Welcome to join our holy warriors. We have enough dog food to make you full. Search and search. I heard that our guild leader is actually a big CEO in real life. It's like overbearing CEO falls for me walked into reality. I'm totally dazzled. Wen Xiaowen seemed a bit embarrassed by the teasing and voluntarily let go of Wan Zekin's hand, creating some distance between them. Wen smiles. Not really, Wan and I only got married for a system reward. We haven't even officially met offline yet, she said, pointing to her fingers. Wan Zekin simply pulled the distance back between them without saying a word, seemingly agreeing by default. Wow, this information overload is frying my CPU. Does this mean that in the game, Wan Zekin and Wen Xiaowen don't know each other's real identities? Lord Zekin, Wan Zekin. Wen smiles. Wen Xiaowen, are these two really that naive? It's so obvious, can't they see? In disbelief, I pointed to the screen. Son, have another close look at their nicknames. Do you realize who they are? Wan Yi frowned and scrutinized for a moment, impatiently saying, there are so many people playing this game, how would I recognize just any two? I was immediately reassured. Even Wan Yi, the young protagonist, couldn't figure it out. Perhaps this is some kind of narrative inevitability. But if Wan Zekin in real life looks for Wen Xiaowen as a substitute, and they seemingly develop feelings for each other, then in the game, Wan Zekin plays along with Wen Xiaowen and flirts with her as if they were strangers online. Let me think. Is this some kind of love triangle? A pink mushroom? Hey, I just saw that the official wants to organize an offline meetup. Wouldn't they meet then? Funny, vulgar and, yeah, then I can ship the guild leader and his wife's offline couple. I immediately went online to confirm, and this large meetup organized by the Battle of St. Row was scheduled for next month. Not too far if driven. Fervent. Go. Even if it rains knives I will also go. The guild leader and his wife must come. My shipped couple finally meeting offline. Sobbing. Let Wan Zekin and Wen Xiaowen meet offline. What a wonderful occurrence. A good thing. With a mindset of loving a spectacle, I immediately spoke up to encourage. Confucius says, if the guild leader and his wife come to the meetup, I'll let the invisible join the holy warriors. The invisible? Wan Yi sent a question mark and turned to look at me fiercely. Why use me as a bargaining chip? Seeing this, I couldn't help but reach out and rub his baby fat cheeks. Oh, because you're cute. Wan Yi blushed, pursed his lips, and reluctantly typed on the keyboard, the invisible. As she said, this gave Wan Zekin an out, and he finally spoke up, agreeing to participate in the offline meetup. And Wen Xiaowen also stated she would attend on time. Thus, Wan Yi agreed to Wan Zekin's invitation and officially joined his father's holy warriors. Wan Yi's prowess was evident to all, and his joining injected a strong force into the holy warriors. The three vengeful demons, knowing they were in the wrong, strategically fell silent. The guild's atmosphere became harmonious, everyone eagerly looking forward to next month's meetup. Curious to see what their comrades in arms looked like, watching everyone support Wan Zekin and Wen Xiaowen, calling her guild leader's wife repeatedly, a smile naturally formed on my lips, a pure smile, too lazy to even mix in any sarcasm. Wan Yi noticed my smile and suddenly seemed unhappy. You seem to care a lot about those two. Yeah, I openly admitted, it's like watching a comedy series, one that keeps on giving. Who cares about all this mushy love stuff? Wan Yi huffed and turned his head away, his voice low. You might as well watch me more. What did you say? I pretended not to hear clearly, making a gesture of confusion. Watch who more? Nobody, Wan Yi said with a flushed face of embarrassment, getting up to leave. I playfully scooped him up in a monkey fishing for the moon hug, and reached out to tickle his waist. Tell me clearly what you're trying to say, or else I won't let you go. I teased, initially stiff. Wan Yi soon broke into laughter, trying unsuccessfully to maintain his aloof demeanor as he twisted and turned, tears of laughter streaming down his face. I'm saying. Only then did I stop, my hand still positioned under his armpits to prevent any escape. Speak, breathing heavily, his face flushed like a little tomato. Wanyi stammered, instead of looking at them, why not look more at me? I'm your son. At the end, Wanyi closed his eyes, his face a mix of embarrassment and indignation as if he was ready to explode. I couldn't help but laugh genuinely, leaning in to kiss his forehead. That's more like it. When it comes to matters of love, don't whisper or keep it bottled up inside, think about it. If you hadn't spoken up today and I suddenly died tomorrow, wouldn't you regret it? Only realizing what the touch on his forehead meant, Wanye's ears began to burn. Hearing my ominous words, he immediately glared and snapped, "Shut up." I flicked his earlobe gently, one for before, and one for now. Will these 2 flicks help you remember to speak properly? But Wanyi, ignoring the pain on his head, stubbornly glared back at me. I forbid you to talk like that, you're not going to die. That's such nonsense, I laughed, unable to help myself. I am human, and humans will eventually die. It's the natural order of things. Yet Wanyi stiffened up, his little fists clenched tight, throwing a childlike tantrum for the first time. I don't care, you are not allowed to die. I paused, realizing my analogy might have been too much, scaring Wanyi, a child just coming out of loneliness. Alright. I extended my pinky finger, softening my voice. I promise you. I absolutely won't die this year. Humans are fragile, but also very resilient. Shall we make a pinky promise? Wanye's eyes slightly reddened, muttering childish under his breath, yet still hooked his pinky with mine. Pinky promise, hang me for 100 years if I change. Wait, why only a year? Wanyi, catching on late, tightened his grip on my finger. I ruffled his hair vigorously with my other hand, messing up his soft black hair into a bird's nest, because mom's magic is limited. Dear, I can only see a year into the future for now. Maybe after a year, perhaps mom's magic will be strong enough to predict 100 years. Magic, you're just fooling kids. Wanyi finally let go to fix his hair, complaining but finally smiling. As time passed quickly in the game during January, Wanzachan also came to visit me multiple times, but I had the caretaker turn him away at the door. He thought I was brooding in solitude, angry at him. Little did he know I was actually inside, playing games with Wanyi enthusiastically. Faced with cold treatment from his so-called first love, Wanzachan had no choice but to shift his infatuation to a game character, a gentle and considerate tender smile, who required no commitment. As each indulged the other, their flirtation quickly escalated to a point where even a passing dog would lead belching. Sometimes I would take screenshots as evidence, but mostly I found it too cringe-worthy and focused instead on leveling up and spending money lavishly. Soon, my ability to spend money leveled me up to 69, making me the first person in the entire service area to max out my alchemy skills. Many rare elixirs could only be crafted by me, and for this, people were even willing to use real money to buy from me, with some even harboring lethal intentions. After over a dozen troublemakers died, everyone knew that the alchemy master called Ziyu always had a level 94 demon race character named Invisible Man by his side, quick to retaliate and hold grudges. If you dared touch Ziyu, the Invisible Man would chase you across the server like a mad dog, with a strategy of strike first, show courtesy later. My army quickly expanded, its numbers swelling from a few hundred to over 1,000. Becoming one of the top-ranked guilds, people are drawn to strength. And with my liberal spending, my status in the guild was increasingly overshadowing that of the guild leader's wife. When Xiaowen seemed to feel threatened and tried multiple times to talk to me, but I refused every time. After all, I had already spoken to her in reality and knew well that nothing good could come from her self-righteous mouth. I really don't want to waste my precious gaming time. Yet one day, after waking up from a nap, I saw Wanyi staring at the computer screen with a fierce expression. I yawned lazily and got out of bed. What's wrong? Stuck at a level again. Since I felt I might only live for another year, I hadn't yet told my parents and younger brother in Hong Kong about my awakening. I didn't want to disturb their lives, which had just begun to recover from their grief, for reasons unknown. Wanzachan also chose not to disclose my awakening to the outside world. The Mrs. Wan was still a comatose person lying in a private hospital, like a sleeping beauty living through people's filters. In reality, I had long moved out of the hospital, bought a fully furnished villa, moved in directly with Wanyi, and even transformed the bedroom into a gaming room, starting a shameless life with games. Of course, Wanyi, the kid, still had to go to school, and on the matter of self-discipline, I never had to worry about him. When Wanyi was at school, I hired professional players to help maintain his account. Today being the weekend, Wanye was at home. I leaned over to look at Wanye's computer screen, which he tried to block, but I pushed his hand away. There, on the official forum of War of St. Luo, was an explosively popular post with a shocking title. Shocking, goddess turns into a shameless mistress, the great Master Dan says. All my drowsiness vanished instantly. Mistress, who, me? Wanye clicked his tongue hard, trying to cover my eyes. It's all slander from rubbish people, nothing worth seeing. I know. I grabbed his hand, but knowing your enemies gives you an advantage. Your mom isn't that fragile. Wanye pursed his lips in silence. I scrolled through the mouse, reading quickly. The post was long, with pictures and seemingly factual, the commentary highly manipulative and incendiary. Essentially, it claimed that after joining the Saint Fighters, I had secretly seduced the leader Qing Liang Chen and, taking advantage of my position, isolated the rightful leader's wife Wen Xiao. The accompanying picture showed me publicly rejecting Wen Xiaowen's chat, with Wen Xiaowen's game character looking down, appearing helpless and pitiful. Further down, the comments stirred up the crowd, overwhelmingly sympathizing with Wen Xiao and cursing me. Many accused me of being cheap and desperate, suggesting that the money I spent in the game was likely earned through unsavory means. The insults were as harsh as they could be. Wanye couldn't stand it anymore, slammed the webpage shut, and looked down, biting his lip in silence. I softened, squatting down to look him in the eye. Let me guess, you're thinking you couldn't protect me, feeling angry and guilty. If it had been the old Wanye, he would have remained silent, keeping his troubles to himself. But after a month of my guidance, he slowly began to express his inner feelings and slowly nodded. Once the dam of his emotions was opened, tears welled up in Wanye's eyes. He felt indignant and more aggrieved, sympathizing with my plight and upset with himself for not being able to think of a way to alleviate this injustice immediately. No matter how talented Wanye was, he was still just a kid. I rubbed his head, encouraging his honesty, urging Wanye to look into my eyes. It's good to cherish others and want to protect those important to you, but you also need to know that I'm not just a decoration. I have my own strengths. You can trust me, and rather than your guilt, I need your trust more. Wanye listened intently and then nodded resolutely. I smiled with relief. Son, enduring for a moment leads to ovarian cysts. Stepping back causes breast hyperplasia. Do you know what the strongest counterattack is? Wanye shook his head, puzzled. The strongest counterattack is when you don't argue or make a scene, you just stand there gracefully, and everyone else will end up proving you right. Although the post was deleted within 2 hours of its publication, it had already reached tens of millions of views before being taken down. By the next day, almost everyone attending the War of St. Luo meetup was aware of it. The officials of War of St. Luo were quite creative, providing all attendees with a custom headband topped with a flashing sign, as if straight from a game. Everyone displayed their own nicknames above their heads. Thus, when Wen Xiaowen, nicknamed Warm Smile, appeared, everyone warmly sympathized and greeted her as the club president's wife. Wen Xiaowen's in-game avatar, a seductive fox spirit with prominent curves, contrasted sharply with her innocent and endearing real-life appearance, which naturally elicited sympathy and admiration from the students around her. This discrepancy caught the attention of all the male players, who couldn't take their eyes off her. The atmosphere reached a climax when Wan Zekin, the CEO of Yugong Trade Group, made his entrance. The moment his nickname Qing Liang Chen was spotted above his head, the whole room erupted into screams. Amidst the screams, Wan Zekin's eyes were fixed only on Wen Xiaowen. Their eyes met, both noticing the nicknames above each other's heads, sparking a moment of surprise and understanding, and a deep, soul-stirring affection whirled into their hearts. It's you, it's really you. As if ordained by heaven, surpassing all others, they smiled at each other, as if their souls were embracing tightly. Around them, the crowd went into a frenzy, whispering excitedly, "Ah, what kind of divine romance is this? It's like a CEO romance novel come to life. I'm totally shipping this." But I heard Mr. Wan comes from a well-connected family, and his wife is supposedly a high-profile lady. I remember his wife was in a car accident and became comatose. It's been years. She must be dead or they must have divorced by now. I know his wife's name is Guzi. Before the accident, she was known as the lady. I've seen her photos. She looks a lot like Wen Xiaowen but with more grace. Such a tragic beauty. Well, there's nothing you can do if she's in a vegetative state. You can't stop someone from moving on to someone better. Since all cell phones were confiscated by the officials, people couldn't go online to verify facts or record anything, so you can imagine the scene when Won Zekin and Wen Xiaowen were sweetly together, and the crowd was anxious. Just as Ziyu and Invisible Man Wan Yi made their dramatic entrance, the whole room felt like a bomb had been dropped. Holy shit, what the hell? That Invisible Man who tortured me in the game is just a little kid. Wait, isn't that the lady? If she is Ziyu, then who's the real mistress? Amidst the uproar, my eyes narrowed slightly and locked onto Won Zekin's ashen face. His expression was more horrified than if he had seen a ghost at midnight. As for Wen Xiaowen, she collapsed to her knees in shock. The crowd scattered as if avoiding a plague, leaving her kneeling alone awkwardly in the center. I smirked and turned to Wang Yi. How does this civilized face-slapping feel? Wang Yi snorted indifferently. Meh, Ozzy, listen to me, let me explain. Won Zekin was pale, trembling as he tried to approach me, his steps unsteady. Just then, when Xiaowen suddenly vomited, she threw up violently, instinctively protecting her stomach. Everyone present was an adult, except for Wang Yi, but even at his young age, Wang Yi recognized the issue immediately. She's pregnant, Wang Yi coldly declared. I raised an eyebrow and glanced at the stunned Won Zekin. Is that your explanation? Won Zekin's eyes were vacant. He finally collapsed to the ground in utter defeat. Disgusting, I muttered, pulling Wang Yi along to leave. Let's go, Mom will take you to the amusement park. Humph, childish. Wang Yi didn't even glance back at Won Zekin. His nominal father, having lost all expectations, just held my hand tighter. I suppose I'll just have to accompany you, he conceded. After a whole day of fun at the amusement park, I woke up sore the next day, still in my pajamas, rubbing my eyes as I walked into the living room. There sat Wen Xiaowen, who had been waiting for 2 hours after I had called her. As I entered the living room, Wen Xiaowen's already straight back tensed even more, like a resilient little plant braving the harsh winter. I lazily sprawled on the sofa, and the maid brought over some perfectly warm tea. I leisurely sipped the tea, clearly seeing Wen Xiaowen struggling to swallow even a sip of water for 2 hours. I set down the teacup and pulled out a checkbook, scribbling and drawing with a pen. She then tore off the paper with a snap and slapped it onto the table, just as if she had been waiting for this moment. Wen Xiaowen snatched the check from the table like a hungry tiger pouncing on its prey, tearing it into shreds with great satisfaction. Forget it. No matter how much money you offer, I will not leave Chen. Our love cannot be measured by money, she declared, proudly puffing out her chest. When Xiaowen continued, I'm not like you. I've never cared about Chen's money. I love his soul. We are true soulmates. I just owed and took another bite of the snack the housekeeper brought in, stung by my indifferent demeanor. When Xiaowen clutched her stomach, her eyes reddening. I know you're just pretending not to care. You love Chen, but even in the game, Chen and I would be drawn to each other's souls. He truly loves me. You're just jealous. With the demeanor of a victor, when Xiaowen stepped on the shredded check, laughing heartily, you try to insult me with dirty money and force me and the child in my womb away from Chen. But dream on. When Xiaowen, am not like you. I won't be swayed by money, even if Chen were a beggar. I would still love him. I swallowed a small cake, rather speechless. Seriously, why should I give you money? Just look at what's written on the check. When Xiaowen froze, then looked down at the check beneath her feet with a strange expression. The messy pieces of the check clearly spelled out 4 words, depend on the defense. When Xiaowen's face turned green as if she had truly stepped in something disgusting. Just then, Wang Yi came in wearing a small apron, holding a tray of freshly baked cookies, and sighed in resignation. Guzi, you're so childish. I clapped my hands and picked a cookie that wasn't too burnt. Anyway, no matter what I say, you won't listen. Let your soulmate tell you in person. With that, I pushed the half-closed door fully open, revealing a much-aged Wang Chen outside. Seeing Wang Chen, when Xiaowen first looked shocked, then joy mixed with shyness appeared, although she had been emotionally charged just now. She hadn't said a wrong word. It could even be considered a passionate confession. However, Wang Chen didn't look at her. He just stared at me pleadingly. I was really drunk that night. I thought she was you. I stuffed another burnt cookie into Wang Chen's mouth. Stop it, until this mess is sorted out. You gang's funds will remain frozen. Wang Chen, unable to spit out the charred cookie or swallow it, finally remembered he had a biological son to turn to, mumbling unclearly. Wang Yi coldly cut him off. This family doesn't need a bastard. If you can't sort this out, then this family doesn't need a father either. that statement was brutally cool. I couldn't help but applaud Wang Yi. Struck hard, Wan Zaichen staggered, his face turned red, filled with anger and unwillingness, but in the end, all he felt was heartbreak and despair. The once confident and radiant man now wilted like autumn leaves. I didn't bother to watch his performance, issuing a directive. Wan Zaichen, I'm taking my son to the registry office to change his surname. When we return, if you've sorted this out, I might consider keeping you at Yugang. Hearing this, Wan Zaichen's eyes lit up like a begging dog. He rushed inside, stepping fiercely on the pile of shredded checks. From afar, my laughter could be heard. It was nothing. I just fairly mocked everyone who stepped on depend on the defense. As the mother of the male lead who started with a boxed lunch. My name clearly shows the author's casual creativity, but at least I like this surname. From then on, Wan Yi changed his name to Gu Yi, his domineering aura even stronger. Before this, I always thought Wen Xiaowen was cunning, especially since she had orchestrated and posted that rumor herself. It turned out she knew all along that Wan Zaichen was playing Battle of St. Row, and had specifically created an account to pretend to encounter him in the game. And while I originally thought Wen Xiaowen was just looking for a marriage of convenience, it was unexpectedly a pure love motive. Wen Xiaowen earnestly begged Wan Zaichen to quit his job and elope with her, declaring she'd marry him even if he became a beggar. Gu Yi and I rewatched the room's surveillance, seeing Wen Xiaowen's face filled with happiness as she described "you're begging," in the future depicted in "I hold the bowl." Wan Zeken's expression was so ugly. It was as if he had eaten something foul. I had originally thought that Wan Zeken, torn between his beloved and his destined partner, would be driven mad by the situation. Unexpectedly, without hesitation, Wan half coaxed and half forced Wen Xiaowen to go to the hospital for an abortion. I turned off the surveillance, closed my eyes, and felt an overwhelming wave of weariness wash over me. It was like the ice on a lake cracking open, the cold air seeping in and deepening the chill of sorrow. At that moment, a warm touch covered the back of my hand. "Mom." Gu Yi looked at me anxiously, holding the back of my hand. He opened his mouth, his voice nervous and unfamiliar, painfully tugging at my heart. "Mom, Mom." I froze, then felt warmth well up in my eyes. "Yes, Mom, yes, Mom, yes, Mom, yes, I'm here," Gu Yi cried, like a true child. He finally dared to cry unrestrainedly in the face of unconditional love. "Mom, Mom, Mom, Mom," Gu Yi called out repeatedly. Like a fledgling bird, and I responded over and over, each reply sincere and heartfelt. He sobbed uncontrollably, struggling to breathe, clutching my hand as if grasping a dream-like salvation. "Mom, I love you so much. Thank you, thank you." I cried too, my tears like the melting ice on a lake. They say God cannot be everywhere. That's why mothers were created. Given the limited time, I need to address 3 matters. First, when Xiaowen ran away, Wan Zeken had tricked her into going for an abortion. But at the last minute, when Xiaowen changed her mind and fled, Wan Zeken was so upset that he cursed Wen Xiaowen's ancestors in the hospital. It was quite a scene, and I wasn't surprised to hear this news. The novel's irresistible force was at play. No way could the pivotal antagonist's illegitimate child be easily dismissed. "Don't worry, Mom," 7-year-old Gu Yi reassured me, patting my hand with a smile that was eerily chilling. "If he dares to bother us, I'll make him regret being born." Me. With the future male protagonist speaking out, how could I dare to make a sound? Second, Wan Zeken was thrown into the sea. The incident at the Battle of St. Luo meetup was leaked. My family in Hong Kong heard about it and came straight over, tying up Wan Zeken to throw him into the sea to vent their anger on my behalf. However, due to the novel's irresistible force, Wan Zeken must survive until Gu Yi is grown, so he was thrown down, then surfaced, sunk again, and surfaced. Back and forth until my research scientist brother took him back to Hong Kong for human experiments. He really was superfluous. This also marked a new method of revenge against a scoundrel. Third, I'm getting sleepy again. My daily sleep durations are getting longer, and even the best doctors are powerless. It's all because of the plot's irresistible force. A year is almost up. This year has been quite carefree for me. My only regret is probably that I can't accompany Gu Yi any further. And Gu Yi has grown a lot this year. Though he fundamentally lacks empathy. After sleeping for an entire day and night, I finally thought of a solution. "Son, before you deal with someone, first consider whether this person has a mother. If you think they do, imagine whether your actions would make their mother sad. But if it seems like they don't have a mother, then don't hold back." Gu Yi understood and remembered this. That night, I had a dream where Guyi met and fell in love with the female protagonist, their relationship healthy and warm, free from the tragedy of a marital chase, leading to a happy ending. I woke up with a contented smile. Just as dawn was breaking, Guyi was lying next to my bed. His pinky finger hooked with mine, his face streaked with tears. I tenderly watched his sleeping face and suddenly remembered, long ago, he had also closed his eyes and entered my world like this, such a tiny bundle of joy, and yet, he truly tripped me up for a lifetime. I couldn't help but sigh deeply. Fortunately, there will always be someone who appears and ignites the fire within your heart. Guyi woke up at some point, his eyes tearing up from the bright light. But he continued to gaze at me intently. Can't that person be Mom? I paused, looking out at the bright and splendid day outside the window, and finally, smiling, I ruffled his hair.